One moment, gang. Oh, my tech. My tech. It's always a problem, right? I can never get this thing set up correctly. Gang, I'm going live a little early because I wanted to say hi to all of you. We're going to have our guests be filtering in as they go. Destiny, my teammate for tonight, is currently arguing with Prime Kai. Once he's done with that, I'm sure he'll come over here and we'll kind of get started. I'm excited for tonight, and I hope, my dear viewers, that you are as well. I think that we have a great lineup today. Like, I understand that our opponents may seem small. They may seem like there's they have a far less robust presence online, and that's fair. But at least in Nonsmoker's case, I think he's a worthy opponent, if you will, right? He is well educated and well spoken, and I am excited for the debate tonight. If you guys watched last night's stream, you probably have a bit of a hint, right, or a preview, if you will, of tonight's content, though the focus is going to be a little bit different tonight. Last night it was on interventionism. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Houthis in particular. Mad Honeybee, I still watch from afar. Well, I'm glad you watch from afar. Welcome. 𝕍𝖎𝖙, yes, I finally learned to start streams early on YouTube. Well, here's the thing with the starting on early on YouTube. It sometimes hurts my numbers. It really is different. Like, I honestly don't know which is better, okay? To start it early on YouTube or to just go on time. I hem and haw back and forth between these two things, right? What I need to learn to do is set up like one of those preview rooms or the waiting rooms that they have, right? So when people can jump in even a day earlier before my stream and just wait there and sit there if they wanted. Though, I don't know. I do like the live viewers. I like the people who watch as it goes. Yeah, we'll see how tonight goes. We'll see how tonight goes, gang. I'm not moderating. I'm debating, so we'll see. Hopefully people don't wild out too much. We are going to be doing this in my Discord, though, so I have to remind myself, right, that I am not the one hosting the stream. And so I'm going to very much try to prevent myself from stepping on anyone's toes here. Though habitually I am the host, and so it's going to be a little bit difficult for me to do so because it's habit. Habits are a thing, gang. I've done quite a bit of research for this. I'm pretty confident in my position. I don't want to give you guys too much of a head start on it, right? You're gonna get about an hour to 2 hours of this shit, so might as well save it for when we can actually discuss. Okay, let me start DMing people, tell them to jump backstage, etc. I wonder if this 𝕶 person... Oh, they did, I believe. Is this them? I think so. It is. Jump backstage whenever. Oh, I don't have them as a friend. I don't really know them. This 𝕶 person is news to me. I checked their audio and I checked their mic and their cam and stuff yesterday just to make sure they worked. They do. That's good. But I don't know them. I don't know, other than their stance is pro-Houthi, I don't know their arguments. So we'll see, right? It's a unknown quantity. I hope that they are well versed. They are recommended by Nonsmoker, though. Nonsmoker is bringing them as a teammate, and so we will see. Benthor, welcome to the chat. Grab a seat. We are early. No one's getting here till 7, so we're just kind of getting started. I'm lubricating the old vocal muscles before we begin. But I'm hoping that hoping it's a robust and spirited discussion. I hope it doesn't turn into either a circle jerk or just a yelly, screamy shit fest. Both of those aren't what I want to do. I want to have an actual like argument about this, like an actual discussion. Okay. We'll see though, right? We'll see how it goes. And like I said, Destiny's currently arguing with Prime Kai, and when he's done arguing with Prime Kai, he'll be here. Okay. I did let him know it was 7 p.m. Eastern, so hopefully they'll start winding down, but we'll see. Hello, you're live.
What is up, man?
You know, just living the life. I'm just trying to get everyone together and in the same place so that we can start at least as on time as possible.
Looks pretty heated on Destiny's stream right now.
Yeah, they're getting him warmed up for you. Okay, Prime Kai's the opening act. Okay, we're the headliners, so he's getting them all worked up, all riled up, and so hopefully we'll have an interesting discussion once they.
Looks like he's coming in hot and heavy.
Yeah. So I know Nonsmoker. Nonsmoker and I have talked quite a while. I don't know you, Alistair. What's your like general like positions on the Houthis? I'm just curious.
Well, I don't necessarily consider them from an understanding perspective. I more or less don't agree with more of their radical positions, but I can understand what they're reacting to at the genocide that's going on the Gaza Strip. I 100% understand why they are reacting towards that.
Hold on. Yeah, no, I get you. Let me make sure that Destiny knows where we're going. He's asking me.
Let me see if I can swap this out so I get the browser. Okay. I might turn off because I hate that like loop back effect.
Yeah, that's fine if you don't like.
Also, you're muted, by the way.
Oh,
I'm probably gonna just do the profile picture.
That's fine.
But yeah, it kicks free. I mean, you know, I know most people are coming in from YouTube, but kicks free, man.
Yeah. So
this is true.
We'll see how this goes. Yeah, I gave him the link, and when he's backstage, I'll drag him in, and we'll do this. We'll do this hot and heavy 2v2. I'm gonna let Nonsmoker. He's the one that invited me. He's the one that set this up, so he's gonna be taking point here, taking lead. Yeah. Any questions on your guys'?
No, I was thinking what makes the most sense is like I could give an opening statement, then Alistair, then hand it off to Destiny, and then you.
Sure.
And then we could just go into maybe like an open forum, and if it gets out of hand, you know, we'll have to say, hey, stop it to whoever's getting out of hand. Okay. We're gonna have to self-regulate a little bit, right?
That's fine. Some out of hand is okay, right? A little bit of it is passion is good, right? But yeah, if everyone starts yelling and screaming over each other, it's gonna be an issue. So
I don't mind passionate discussion, but it has to be good discussion, you know?
We'll see.
Yep. I'm hoping this can be a good discussion. I'm hoping this will be a good discussion, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, we're just waiting on the man of the hour here.
Oh yeah, the big man himself.
Give him a minute though. He's just had to deal with Doobie and Prime both at the same time, so you know that's a little bit of a stressful situation. Did you guys watch the Prime debate at all?
I've only watched like a couple of Destiny streams recently to get to know his positions a little bit better.
I did not.
Okay. I thought it was interesting talk. But if you guys,
what was Prime's take?
Well,
what was Prime's take?
Prime is the is pretty pro Palestine, pro ceasefire, etc., etc., etc. Destiny is, I wouldn't call him anti-Palestine, but he's a less of a pro ceasefire person than Prime is. And did you guys see the ICJ ruling today?
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured that would come up.
Yep.
I mean, again, it's like it's not definitive. It's not like Israel's definitely being charged with anything. In terms of my argument, I feel like it's kind of leverage for a negotiators to step in and deter Israel from any further action. You could make the argument that, hey, if the world is at least considering a case of genocide being, charged against you, maybe, it's time to take a step back and reconsider the strategy here. But we'll see where it goes. I mean, it could still, fall apart in court.
Sorry, I'm just checking my DMs, making sure. Well, yeah, he asked, and I gave him the link.
Imagine he just no-showed.
That would be frustrating. But no, not to glaze the guy too much, but he's never purposely stood me up. There was one time we had a scheduling conflict that my invite went to spam. He scheduled like 3 things at the same time. It was a whole mess. But other than that one incident, if he says he shows, right? If he says he's going to show up, he shows up. So I'm grateful for that. Not every creator does that same thing. Even the small ones, right? There's a lot of small people that I've invited on who 5 minutes before the stream, they're like, oh, sorry, I can't make it. Or, oh, no, this is boring. And they just ditch. And I hate it. But
yeah, I'd imagine that becomes more common the bigger you get, I suppose.
Oh, yeah, well, always have a backup plan. If I have to, I'll take you both on at the same time. No, but I think that this
Thanks for the follow, Emily.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a good discussion.
I hope so. I'm more open for a good discussion more than anything. But if it gets heated, it gets heated.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to like we're not on Twitch or anything, so moderation is not as big of a concern. So if you're pro Houthi, be pro Houthi, right? If you stand what they're standing for, do it, right? Like,
did you hear that? Follow me on Kick.
So yeah, definitely don't hold back is what I'm asking, right?
Yeah, no.
Did Destiny bail? Destiny did not bail, at least not yet. I think he's still arguing with Prime. I think that's going a little bit over time.
It looked pretty heated. It looked like a fun discussion.
I tuned out about 5 minutes ago. So when he gets here, he gets here. And like I said, he's never done me wrong yet when it comes to scheduling, at least. So
yeah, Destiny always struck me as the kind of guy to try and do a lot of Socratic logic. Oh, Nonsmoker, your mic's off.
Yeah, I'm yelling at chat.
Oh, okay. But yeah.
So, Alistair, what made you want to do this debate? Like, what made you decide? I want to talk about this.
So I was wanting to get in debate panels with Nonsmoker, and we'd been looking to get on debate panels for a while. And eventually Nonsmoker messaged me probably Sunday or so. He's like, "Yeah, I found this debate panel." I was like, "Oh, sweet, we could finally get a debate panel to hop on, or whatever, right? We'll be the token communist." And then he's like, "Oh yeah, it's Destiny's gonna be on." I'm like, "The fuck." That's something else entirely. A little bit out my league, but okay. You know what?
Yeah, I contacted Alistair, and I've been talking for a while. Actually, I don't know if you remember, Whick. I said to you a little while back, I have communists in the chamber if you need them. Alistair is one of them. And it's just funny that the first debate I offer up to him to be a part of is with fucking Destiny. It's like 0 to 1,000,
I was hoping for some 50, maybe 100, concurrent viewer kind of thing, mid audience size, not 10 grand. That's okay,
Right. Like the next one is with AOC actually after this.
Yeah. Then we're gonna be going to the presidential debates too in front of a live audience of 30 million or something.
No, it's one of those things. Well, so I reached out to. I'm not sure who did it first, but I reached out to Nonsmoker, or Nonsmoker reached out to me. And we wanted to talk about the Houthi thing, and I was like, okay, I'll set up. I have a panel already set up on Thursday that I would invite him to, right? And then he asked me that if I wanted to actually debate, and I said yes. And he asked me to bring a partner, so I brought a partner, and here we are.
Yeah, you told me. It's a little bit outgunned, but we'll try our best.
I mean, look, I don't fuck around, right? Kids need to learn. Just saying, right? If you find yourself in a fair fight, you fucked up. So bring on the strongest guy I got, and the strongest guy I got. So
I mean, if I could summon Donald Trump or somebody to be my debate partner,
do you want to summon look, if you can get Donald Trump on here, I'll pull him on and we'll talk. But
yeah, I choose Donald Trump to be my next debate partner.
Well, Whick, and just a shout out to Whick too, by the way. Go follow him, guys. Whick TV on Twitch. Whick low key has like a number of like decent sized to big streamers on his panels. I've seen a number of them. This is not your first conversation with Destiny, correct, Whick?
Correct. I've and also people outside of the debate sphere entirely. I had no opinion on. Just the other day, he's I think the biggest Substacker there is. He used to write for Bloomberg and things like that. It's really decent sized creator. So yeah, I from the spectrum. It's not every time, right? Not every panel is going to have the biggies on, right? Like, and I like to remember where I came from too, like, because I'm still a small creator, but I was even smaller back in the day, right? And people gave me a chance and let me on to the big debate stages, right? So I try to do the same to everyone I can. And obviously I can't for everyone. We have limited slots, limited space, but when I can, I like to bring on the little guy because I am a little guy. I'm just a small boy. Okay.
It's true. I mean, this only works, like, I think if, smaller creators try to help other smaller creators, we all build the space up, to the best we can.
It shows that you guys want to have a diversity of opinion and thought when you have your discussions, which is a good thing.
I don't want to circle jerk, bro. I don't want to talk to just like everyone who agrees with me and only slight minuscule disagreements. I want to hear from the other side. And a lot of times when I put a debate topic together, when I'm the one moderating and hosting, a lot of times I don't know what my opinion is, or I have mixed thoughts on it. And one of the reasons I do it is to kind of hear hopefully the good arguments from both sides so I can maybe get a better idea for myself. Now, on this topic, I absolutely have a very strong opinion. I think what we need to do the Houthis is, well, we'll get into it, I'm sure.
Okay,
I am not sympathetic to them at all. I think that, it will be interesting to see how this goes. But yeah, once Destiny gets done arguing with his current opponents, we can bring him on. Fuck, if I don't know if Prime's pro Houthi or not. I'd just say we can just bring Prime on to this. But if he's not pro Houthi,
looks like he's still muted down there. Okay, I see his account down there. Watch party.
Who? Oh, he went in the wrong room.
All right.
Hold on. Okay, we found him.
Alrighty.
Took a minute, but we got him. You went in the wrong room, buddy.
Wow, hi.
Hi. I didn't expect you to be down there in the watch party. I thought you'd be up backstage, but...
Oh, well, just dump me down there and leave me, okay? Fuck you.
It's okay. How's it going?
It's going great. How are you going?
Well, I saw part of your debate with Prime and Doobie. You looked a little heated there.
Yeah, that's what we do. We scream at each other. It's blood sports.
Hold on, you're very low. Let me turn you up. Can you say something again just to make sure your audio's okay?
Hey, how's it going? 1, 2, 3. Hello. Hi,
You're still a little low. Can you turn yourself up a little bit?
No, what the fuck? If my shit is low on your end, you're fucked. Fix yourself. My volume is in the red. My volumes are perfectly fine. You go to user settings on Discord, okay?
I'll just turn up my headphone volume. How that?
Well, how many different volumes do you have? Is your volume set to 100%?
I have you on 200 on Discord, so.
No, on your actual Discord voice settings.
Let me look.
Like you have to go to voice and video. You click the gear thing. You go to voice and video on output volume.
Output volume is 100%. Yes.
Oh, okay. Then turn your shit up, motherfucker.
Fair enough. Well, this ain't my rodeo here. Nonsmoker's the one that invited us. Nonsmoker, take it away. You're up.
Yeah, Whick, Destiny, thanks for coming on, guys. I really appreciate it. So I had approached Whick with this topic, I guess, like a week ago. It seems to be one of the hotter issues in the news lately, the entire Houthi question. Is it appropriate for us to carry out military strikes is it not? I'm of the position that it's not, and I guess my reasoning is a little complicated, but I think it seems to make sense to me, and I just maybe need a second to hash it out. But my position is that the U.S. has a really terrible track record in both the 20th and the 21st century, at least after the Second World War, of getting, tangled in conflicts where we purport to be trying to reduce tension, trying to preserve human life, trying to fight for humanity's sake. And what ends up happening is these various little theaters turn into a greater degree of like chaos and disarray. More people die, conditions get worse on the ground. Things just turn out to be worse than they would have had we never gotten involved. In most cases. Most recent example, the biggest one I always reference back to is the Iraq War. So with that being said, I see military strikes on a small country, and I have this reflexive, sort of urge to say this is bad. But looking over the nuance a little bit, I happen to think that the reason the Houthis are doing this and carrying out these strikes on commercial shipping vessels is an attempt to try to legitimize themselves as a regional power. And I actually think that a lot of that is based on the idea that they feel like they have this moral argument, right? We're doing this to stand up for the Palestinians, and we're trying to stop this genocide in Gaza. Whether that's a legitimate claim or not, to me, is almost irrelevant. I think it actually is incumbent upon the U.S. to try and do more than what we're doing now, which is virtually nothing, to try and broker some sort of peace arrangement between Gaza and Israel, which will take away the moral imperative, at least on behalf of the Houthis, to continue these strikes. I happen to think that as of this point, we haven't killed any civilians, but I think if we continue striking Yemen, the probability that we will kill a civilian increases every time we carry out strikes. I think that killing civilians is bad. We should do everything we can to reduce the amount of civilians that need to die in these conflicts. And I just don't want to see this conflict expand more and more and more and more and see more people die, see more American tax dollars wasted in the Middle East, killing, generations of brown babies and shit like that. So that's my basic position. Alistair, I think you have sort of a similar take, and then maybe we could go like Destiny and then Whick with like opening statements.
Yeah, I have mostly a similar take in that the Houthis are making a legitimate response to what is going on in the Gaza Strip. And this is more or less like a long trend of historical patterns that have happened with Israel continuously expanding into Palestinian territory. And so these reactions are more or less legitimate. Not necessarily perfect. I'm not going to defend that they're perfect, but they are understandable, to say the least.
Cool. Destiny, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the reactions are totally not legitimate. Just because you're upset about a conflict going on in some other part of the world doesn't give you the right to attack the entire world. Shutting down massive shipping lanes that have massively negative effects on everybody is unhinged, and you deserve to have whatever launching platform or boat or infrastructure you're using to launch those attacks to be absolutely and completely obliterated by whatever country wants to do it. I think the United States, as the leader of ensuring like trade and whatnot around the world, or ensuring maritime shipping and everything, I think we absolutely have an obligation to stop this. I think the rest of the world is looking at us to stop this. And there's no moral authority on the rights of the Houthis to attack merchant ships. And there's absolutely moral authority from the United States perspective to guarantee free passage through international shipping lanes.
But you said they had no right to intervene. So why do they not have a right to intervene when we're in? Oh,
Wait, Alistair, and not to cut you off. Maybe give Whick a chance.
Go. I'll get in there. Trust me. You can let them go.
Okay. You said they have no right to intervene, but then you're dictating that the United States should intervene with the Houthis.
Yes, that's correct.
Why's that?
Well, because the Houthis are aggressing against international shipping, and the United States is defending international shipping.
Indiscriminately?
Yeah, well, just today.
Doesn't matter. Even if it was discriminatory or indiscriminate, it doesn't really matter. You don't have a right to shut down incredibly important trading passages. And right now, the world is viewing it as indiscriminate. So,
well, I mean, how many ships have they attacked? They've attacked 34. There's an average of 68 ships passing through the Suez Canal daily. Okay. And so over the period they've been doing these attacks over the last 70 days, 4,900 ships have passed through this canal, and only 34 have actually been seized or interacted with by the Houthis. So they're not targeting every ship.
Doesn't matter.
Well, the majority of training,
the entirety of the world is decreasing their traffic through there. More and more people are routing their ships around South Africa, And nobody wants to take the risk of their ship being the one that's destroyed. Shipping has fallen off dramatically. You can look at the container costs that have ballooned in value for, especially Europe, is being negatively affected by this.
And I just to jump in here, right? Just because they aren't able, like physically able to attack more ships, doesn't mean they wouldn't if they could, right? They are. At least it seems to me that they are going after everything that they can get their hands on, including U.S. and UK-owned vessels. Just today, they hit a United Kingdom tanker, right? And there's fears of a massive oil spill, ecological disaster in the region, right? This idea that they are doing it with just to support the Gazans, right, is ludicrous and not bared out by the data. They are attacking Japan-owned ships, anything they can get their hands on. And sure, they aren't doing it to a level where every single ship is getting hit, but that's just because they can't, right? Not because they don't want to.
But if they're targeting indiscriminately, why is an all-Chinese crew signal being sent across as a warning sign not to attack certain ships? The Chinese ships aren't necessarily getting attacked by these things. This was something that was really...
The Chinese literally abstained in the Security Council from the vote when we said we were going to go and fuck the Houthis up. Chinese don't like this anyway, either. Especially because China's one trying to broker peace in the region. Nobody wants this.
But the fact that these ships are using all Chinese crew as a signal to avoid being targeted by the Houthis is evidence they're not just targeting all ships. They're mostly targeting ships which are either from the United States or the United Kingdom. And the first ship that was targeted...
Even if that was the case, they wouldn't even have a right to do that.
Okay, so why does the United States have the right to intervene, but not the Houthis when it comes to the genocide going on against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip?
The Houthis have a right to intervene in the genocide against the Palestinian people if they feel that way. You don't intervene by shutting down global shipping lanes.
But they're not doing that to every ship. Less than 1% of the ships going through the Suez Canal have been targeted by the Houthis.
It doesn't matter. Traffic is decreased by 50%. Nobody wants to ship their shit through there right now because they don't know if they're going to be destroyed or not.
Yeah, I mean, my argument really is not that the Houthis have a right to stop global trade or anything like that. I think it's their claim, whether we want to argue it's legit or not, and I'm open to the idea that it's not legit. But I think their claim is based on the idea that there's this ongoing genocide in Gaza, and so they want to stop, they want to contribute in any way they can, and they feel as though, hey, we can't do anything to stop Israel's military directly. We don't have the capability to do that. But what we can do is essentially fuck up global trade to draw more attention to this conflict zone. That's their stated purpose.
Yeah,
I happen to think part of the motivation here is to be recognized as some sort of influential power, right? They can do something that will affect the rest of the world to try and make a statement.
If their goal was to support Gaza and get U.S. and UK withdrawal support Gaza, they are going about it in the exact opposite way that will achieve their goal. Because we cannot, right? Even if we wanted to, we cannot be seen to be giving in to these attacks in order to help Gaza and things like that. Because if we do, right, if we do give in, if the Houthis get what they claim they want, and because of their blockade, we are seen as going harder on Israel and withdrawing our support from Israel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What will happen is the next time there is a conflict that the U.S. May even tangentially be involved in, they are going to start shooting at civilian vessels again because it worked before and it will work again. There is a reason we do not negotiate with terrorists, and this is it. It's because if you give them what they want, if it works, then they will just do it more. And so we must use the military power that we have to make sure that, to the best of our ability, that it does not work.
So you want to go Nonsmoker, or do you want me to go?
No, I mean, I was just going to say that in terms of one of their primary goals, I think, being recognized as a power in the region, I think they've already achieved that just by drawing all of this attention from carrying out strikes. And I think that there's a high probability that if the Houthis are in power in any capacity in the Middle East at all, they might continue carrying out strikes arbitrarily or whenever they have some demand for the foreseeable future. I just don't think that the response to that should be an aggressive military push to just completely remove them from power, because that'll result in destabilization. We're not even there yet. We're just carrying out small scale strikes and all that kind of stuff. And I do understand the logic of that. I just don't think it's going to be as effective as cutting off their moral imperative.
There is no moral imperative. Just because you're unhappy with a conflict somewhere else on the earth doesn't give you the right to shut down global shipping lanes.
Stated moral imperative. Like that's
there
their
was a state of
argument.
that's fine, but we're here to evaluate if we agree or disagree with that. If that was the case, then every country in the
I
world
don't
would be
even agree with
constantly
that.
okay. Well, every country around the world would be constantly shooting into the oceans if they thought that like some conflict in some other place of the world was not going in a way they agreed with. That's insane. You don't have a right to shut down shipping.
I'm totally open to the idea that that's all bullshit, right?
Oh,
but
okay. I
my
mean, that would be my
argument here
argument.
is that I think we're all in agreement. We would like to see an end to the conflict in Gaza, right? Correct.
hope so, yeah.
I would assume
That conflict has nothing to do with this one, though.
I
But
think
it
there is
does.
a
That's what the
connection.
stated-
It's the
No, there
stated.
is no.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
The
They're
Houthis have
entirely
stated that.
separate conflicts. I don't care if they say it, right? I can go down to my police station, start punching cops, and say, "Well, I'm going to do this until the conflict is resolved in Israel." That doesn't mean that they're connected just because I say they are. That's
But
not how that
what
works.
connection
No,
to punching a
it's
cop would you have to genocide going on the Gaza Strip? Like the Houthis have directly said that this is their response to something going on in the Gaza Strip.
And I could say that it's my response to the violence in the Gaza Strip that I'm going to punch cops.
Yeah, but we already
No,
established that they aren't indiscriminately targeting ships. You know,
They
the
are
statistics
indiscriminately
don't line up.
targeting ships right now.
The numbers don't add up. It's less than 1% of the ships going through the Suez Canal have been affected by the Houthis.
I don't know why you keep saying less than 1%. If I go to an interstate highway and I start sniping 1% of drivers, everybody's going to exit. I don't know why you keep fixating on that number. Traffic has fallen.
On that one.
Okay, traffic has fallen severely. I think it's almost cut by 50%.
And that's perfectly fine. But that doesn't prove that they're doing it indiscriminately.
It proves that the rest of the world thinks they are.
Okay, that's perfectly fine.
That's not fine. You're shutting down global shipping. You're having a chilling effect. You're going to get your fucking ass pushed in. Like that's
Your
what's going to
disagreement
happen.
here is between perception and actuality.
I shouldn't, but even if I grant you all of that they're only attacking U.S. or Israeli ships, they don't even have the right to do that. They have no moral right to do that either.
No, I'm open to the idea, once again, that they have no moral right to do any of this. What I'm suggesting is part of this, I think, is political. Most of it is political for the Houthis. They look at it as like, hey, we have a justifiable reason to carry out these attacks that will make us look like a legitimate regional power. So if we can do something to take away that moral argument, it might actually hurt them in the optics area. And I'm open to the idea that if we can help resolve or do more, in my view, to resolve the crisis in Gaza, and the Houthis continue to carry out attacks on ships, I'm actually okay with responding with strikes.
No,
coordinated
there's no
strikes.
connection between these two conflicts. They're not
I mean,
connected at
they've
all.
stated that there's a direct.
Yeah,
It
they
doesn't
stated
matter
publicly.
that they
How are you
stated.
denying this fact? Like this, like
Because
Hassan
they're not-
Piker
because you
talked
can
about
look at
Houthi pirate about this before. Like they've already stated this multiple times publicly.
It doesn't
They're using
matter.
it as
They're
their-
not
but it
connected. We
matters
can use
'cause
our
they're-
eyes and our brains. The countries don't border each other. They don't share governments. They don't share
No, but
economies.
it-
they don't share funding sources. They don't share like anything with each other.
It
What-
matters. It
So
matters.
So if it's disconnected from me, I can't involve myself and say this genocide is wrong. Is because I don't presently live there. I can't
I
morally
think-
say that's
Hold
bad.
on. No, wait. Hold on. What? The who?
I mean, you
everybody
said
around
they're
the world.
completely disconnected.
No,
is
no,
that not
hold
your
on.
argument?
No. You just said if you don't live there, you can't say that genocide is wrong. No.
Yeah.
What I said is because you don't live there, you can't start attacking ships in trading lanes. There's a big difference between shooting missiles at civilian ships and saying that something is wrong. If they want to say something is wrong, they have every right to do that.
Sure,
San
but
Francisco
we're talking about a
declared
distinction
that they
between
wanted a
perception and
ceasefire. They're
actuality.
not bordering it. They condemned the Gaza and what's happening in Gaza, but Biden isn't bombing them now. What's the difference between these two groups, right? Both are condemning, right, what's happening in Gaza. Both oppose it. One is engaged in terrorist attacks against civilian targets, and one is not.
So that's the you've argued that it was just the perception of indiscriminate attacks. You've already agreed that it is not in objective reality indiscriminate attacks. You mostly made your arguments based on the perception, not the actuality, is because the numbers don't line up on the total number of ships that's going through the Suez Canal.
Wait, why do you keep saying, hold on, do you recognize that traffic has dramatically fallen?
Oh, I do recognize that.
Okay, do you recognize that shipping costs are exploding for Europe?
Yes.
And do you recognize that thus far, there's not good evidence to suggest that the Houthis are only targeting Israeli or American vessels?
You haven't proven that.
Okay, what would you need me to provide you to prove that?
I don't know. The Galaxy Leader, the first ship that they went after, was basically the company, I think it was resurrecting, was established by one of the wealthiest businessmen in Israel. It's not being indiscriminate. That's my point the entire time. You can argue whether or not these have been effective.
So now they can target any ship that had an investor that was Israeli?
Who's one of the wealthiest men in Israel? Is that
Okay,
not
so
an
now
important
we
figure
can
with
target.
Israel?
So what about a really wealthy Jew from the United States? Can we target his vessels?
Why would they attack him?
No, his shipping vessels that he invests in.
Okay, if he's a Jew from the United States, or is he tied to the Israeli state? That might be why they'd be targeting him.
Is this guy funding the IDF?
He just happens to be a very wealthy business and Israel.
Okay, what about today when literally like hours ago a massive Russian tanker was attacked by the Houthis? This happened hours ago. Do we think that is there a Jewish connection to that?
It's not a Jewish connection. We're more or less talking about Zionists and relations to the Israel state, which is what
is there a Zionist connection to that?
I'm not sure. I don't know about that instance.
Okay, so
Yemen's Houthi rebels claimed the strike on the Marlene Luanda. The vessel is carrying Russian-origin naphtha, a product used to make plastics and gasoline, purchasable at the price cap, blah, blah, blah. This literally happened hours ago. Carried fuel from Russia, will likely concern Moscow. Vast amounts of Russian petroleum now pass through the southern Red Sea to reach Asian buyers.
Recent Houthi attack on commercial ships.
There's Japanese vessels as well. There's other vessels. Like there are vessels that have zero connection, right? Just because they did.
Which one's the
Galaxy
Japanese
Leader,
vessel? Which one's the
Let
Japanese
me get
vessel?
the fucking name of it. Hold on.
Because you're probably thinking of the Galaxy Leader, which was British owned and then operated by a Japanese crew.
And you think that they had justification to attack that one?
No, I'm
because
not.
The shipping company and
Again,
Ray
my goal
shipping
here is not to perfectly justify everything the Houthis are doing, but more or less assert that they're reacting to a crisis in Gaza. That's been my point the entire time.
But then why can't I go punch cops in reaction to Gaza?
We're not saying
okay,
it's
how would that
okay
help?
to do that. We're
how
saying
would
that's
that
the
stop the
rationale.
genocide in Gaza? Like,
how is this stopping the genocide in Gaza?
Hold on.
Because they're
punching cops
discriminately
punching cops thing is a good example because people do use that as a justification to attack cops. It doesn't mean it's okay to attack the cops. But if we could do more to stop, for example, police brutality, maybe that would result in less attacks on cops.
I don't think the reason why I'm not saying that people do this. I'm comparing it to something that you have a shitty justification for.
Okay,
do you think that it's okay to attack a cop because some
you're
cops
aware
are...
you don't like the justification.
Okay,
what I'm saying is the justification exists, right? They're using it as a justification. Maybe if you remove the justification,
My spouse
remove the fact
didn't
or
have
reduce
dinner
the ability
on
for
the
it to continue
table
happening.
when I got home, right? This led to me beating the crap out of her. That is an excuse. It doesn't stop.
He's saying that we're just like attack. Well, but then what are we here to discuss if not like if we agree or disagree with the justification? I think we all know the justification the Houthis are using. I thought we were fighting against the justification.
I'm saying the best way through trying to stop this, right? We all agree that it's bad, right? We don't want attacks on commercial shipping vessels. I think the best way to stop this is through diplomacy in Gaza.
No. Why would you allow another party? Why would you allow somebody that's not party to a conflict to dictate the resolution of that conflict?
So Destiny, I got a question for you. Like, why do you think these people are attacking ships then? Like, is it just random acts of terrorism?
No, it's because destabilization in the region favors actors like Iran and Hezbollah.
And it's just right around the same time the Palestinian-Israel conflict really picked up at the same time?
They used it as an opportunity.
You ride off the backs of that destabilization. I'm sorry, do you think Iran has only been targeting ships? And do you think the Houthis have only been targeting ships right now? You don't think this hasn't been happening since 2014, since the entire region has been collapsed and taken over by the Houthis?
How many ships have been targeted prior?
I don't know the number of ships that are targeted. I can't give you the exact number of that. But I'm sure the attacks have ramped up right now because there's another conflict going that you want to capitalize on. But that doesn't mean that they're tied in such a way that like the Houthis have a legitimate claim to being able to try to snipe the conflict in Gaza.
So the Houthis have openly said they're doing it in response to Gaza, okay? And it looks like a duck. It sounds like a duck.
They're not telling the truth.
They're lying. Okay,
yes,
they're
lying.
Okay.
Yes, they can say all they want, right? What they're doing and the reasons they're doing it, but we don't have to believe them. We can look at what their actions are, right? It's words versus deeds. If someone says that they're a good person, but everything they do belies that notion, you don't believe them. You say, oh, you're just lying. Their actions are attacking ships that have nothing to do with the Israel and Gaza conflict right now. And even if a wealthy Israeli owner owned a ship, that does not mean that there is a connection between the current conflict in Gaza and the ship being attacked. There's none.
You could argue about how effective they are in enforcing a so-called sanction about shipments going to Israel, and I might agree with you on that. I might not even agree with like some of the people that have in their ranks. But the thing is the numbers don't fucking add up. Less than 34 ships have been attacked since mid-November all the way till now, and 4,900 ships approximately passed through the Suez Canal. And you can't tell me that they're just doing this instantly just because they like to kill babies.
Because they don't have the means to attack every single ship. They don't have that many munitions.
Yeah.
The real question is how many of the shipments they were attacking, how many of those were destined for Israel? That's the real question. Of the ships they did attack.
Yeah, I could agree with you on that one. Maybe they were mistargeting some ships, which is why I said like
So
I could
when we
probably agree with you on how
show,
effective they were
if we
doing
can
it.
show
But if it looks
that
like
most of the
if you talked
ships-
about looking at their actions, you talked about their actions, right? Their actions have been in correlation to the same time period the Israel-Palestine conflict has been going on.
Yes, they want to capitalize on that conflict. I'm not saying that like the conflict is unrelated to their is completely unrelated to like their motivations in terms of why they're doing what they're doing right now. But I'm saying that conflict is not necessarily connected to the Houthis in such a way that they're participating in a meaningful way in that conflict. They're just taking advantage of it. The same way that a person might beat up a Jewish person or a Muslim in the United States. Say, oh well, I'm doing this because of what's happening in Gaza. Yeah, the motivations can be there, but that's the only connection. They're not actually connected like they have like an actual, I don't know, existential interest or an interest in their country for it. They're just doing it because they're riding off riding off the conflict.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree when you said that destabilization in a region creates opportunities for like non-state actors, these various groups that, to take power, to make big, gestures to try to assert control or assert themselves as legitimate. But wouldn't you agree, or maybe you wouldn't, I don't know, that like a lot of what's driving the destabilization in the region is the conflict in Gaza? Like if we could somehow help resolve that, it would reduce the destabilization by quite a bit.
Do you think like maybe reining back Israel or maybe the strength from above kind of mentality has probably done more harm than good for the region and basically inciting Arab nationalism?
No.
Okay, so if you want to go all the way back to the British Mandate of Palestine, when the Ottoman Empire still existed, they seem pretty tame is because they actually had a multi-ethnic and multi-religious empire. So if we looked at now, right, and because this is your main argument, Destiny, is that most of the people who are Palestinians or maybe even like Hezbollah are religious fundamentalist extremists. Would you say that's a little bit different than, say, under the Ottoman Empire or when the British Mandate of Palestine first came about, where they were probably a little bit more tolerant to a multi-ethnic and multi-religious region?
I don't think I ever said it was necessarily an ethnic or a religious conflict. I think it is a regional conflict right now that had to do with European settlers basically coming over, and they fought for that reason, but I don't know how any of that is tied into any of this now.
I mean, you went on a couple of streams previously and said that they were Islamic fundamentalist.
I've said a billion times that religion is not the driving factor between why people don't like Israel in the Middle East. If religion was the driving factor, then the Arabs would have united and kicked them out a long time ago. It was thinly veiled desires for pan-Arabism. It was different competing nationalistic interests. That's why at the same time the Six-Day War was going on, Saudi Arabia and Egypt were fighting on the same side against Egypt and funding different sides during the Yemen Civil War. So, I mean, like...
But my point is like, do you think like the strength from above kind of mentality of just bomb these people has not at least incited a little bit more Arab nationalism in comparison over the last, like, say, 100 years? Like maybe 100 years ago?
I think if anything, it's probably chilled the Arab nationalism out. They realize it's not achievable. They stopped trying, and now they're chilled.
The normalization,
people like Nasser are gone. People like Saddam Hussein are gone. Yeah, people are just
the
like,
normalization between Egypt and Israel is a good example of this. Israel kicked their shit in, and they stopped fighting, right? So again, like this idea that people will simply be radicalized if you bomb them, I don't think it necessarily pans out. I think that you're putting the cart before the horse in a lot of times. Like, I guess my question to both of you would be, you don't like that Biden's striking the Houthis for what they're doing, correct? You think that's wrong?
I think yeah, go ahead.
Wrong, ineffective,
I just think
whatever.
Right. Yeah, I think
correct?
it's not a very
effective. So what would you have him do? Because what it seems to be like you guys are asking us to do is just let them continue to hit civilian ships. You're asking us to be Uvalde cops, waiting till the shooter tires and tuckers himself out, and then you can go in and negotiate with him. I reject that notion entirely. If you are actively targeting civilian ships, it doesn't matter your reason why. We should take you out and take your ability to continue to do so out. And that is what America and UK both are doing right now. They're targeting radar sites. They're targeting missile silos. They haven't killed, to this day, a single civilian. Again, if someone is actively shooting at civilians, you stop them. Period.
Yeah, but go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say two things. One, I mean, the strikes on commercial shipping vessels haven't stopped. I'm not saying that, they haven't been reduced or whatever, the capabilities haven't been reduced, but the strikes haven't stopped. If anything, this is showing that the Houthis are sort of willing to engage in a tit for tat sort of exchange here. one. And then two, I mean, in terms of options, I really do think that all of this, the origin point is in Gaza. I know you guys disagree with me, but I tend to believe that this sort of initiated a sequence of events. This is one of them, right? The same as Hezbollah attacking, Israel. I think that if we did more to try and rein in Israel, that for sure it would reduce at least some of the justification here. I don't think that there's a magical solution, of course. That's ridiculous. But I think, the position we have now where we're doing really almost nothing to speak out against Israel's actions, at least the Biden administration isn't, and they've been criticized a lot by their own State Department for that, or there's rumblings within the State Department about that. I think there needs to be like a concerted effort on our part to try and do something to resolve that conflict. And then in terms of the Houthis directly, I mean, I'm open even to like having talks of lifting sanctions entirely. And then if they're not willing to play this game of like good faith with us, then yeah, carry out all the strikes you want.
But we did
Well, and also
remove them from the terrorist watch list. One of the first things Biden did in his foreign policy was removed the Houthis from the terrorist designation that they have, right? And he did this in order to try to negotiate, okay, can we do a peaceful, talky resolution? Obviously, this has not worked.
What year did he take him off the special terrorist designation? Okay, so that was like over 3 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Circumstances on the ground have changed. I think that's kind of the point, right? Like,
also, Israel is in the process of resolving the conflict right now by killing all of Hamas.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be effective either.
How's it going? Well, so far, most of the Arab leaders still support Israel because most of them fucking hate Hamas. So it seems to be going okay so far.
Yeah, look, I think Israel killing tens of thousands of people, many of whom are civilians, is just going to radicalize the Gazans more.
I mean, you've gone on like 4 different streams, Destiny, complaining about this kind of extremism, Arab extremism. And you don't think that's like at least slightly contributing to it? Like a little bit?
I have no idea what you think any of my positions are. They sound completely strong. Arab extremism? I don't know if the Arabs. I don't think the Arabs. I don't think the Arab states all function as like Arab extremists right now.
Sure.
And I don't think that Islamic extremism is a big driving force for any geopolitical issue right now. I think almost all of it is geopolitical in nature in terms of like states, borders, and the people that they support and fight with.
Destiny, I swear to God, I'm not asking this in like a super triggered way. I'm just legitimately curious. Like, do you have any criticisms for Israel's conduct in Gaza in terms of like how they're carrying out this campaign?
It's hard without having insight into their military. Obviously, some of the stuff that we've seen, like shooting people that are waving white flags or shooting people that appear to be surrendering, that seems to be bad. But holistically, it seems like they're conducting the operation about as well as I'd expect them to. But it's hard because there aren't very many comparable situations for like urban warfare that's this intense. I don't think that's ever happened in the history of the planet. So it's hard to draw comparisons. But given, if you believe their reports, that about 1/3 of the people killed so far have been Hamas fighters, you've got like a 1-to-3, 1-to-4 civilian death ratio here for highly urbanized combat. It seems to be going okay so far, if you believe their numbers of how many are Hamas fighters.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, like I have the same view with anyone's reported numbers. I have no fucking idea. Like it's possible that's true. But I guess my view is like a lot of the optics here are fucking really bad. I mean, the amount of innocent people dying is like, I would say like enormous is a word that comes to mind. Like it feels a little bit like collective punishment, like even just the amount of infrastructure being destroyed alone and the impact that'll have on the people living there.
Yeah, but they cut off water, electricity, food, and a lot of shipments into the Gaza Strip. Is that also not true?
They have limited those going in before, yeah, because organizations like Hamas literally, and the Houthis too, literally co-opt these things to fund their terrorist activities. Yeah, it's been an issue.
Okay, so like food and electricity, like how would that exactly get co-opted into like, I don't know, nuclear or like weapons or something like that?
Well, electricity gets co-opted because it's used to manufacture things that they probably shouldn't be to continue their fight with Israel, and food gets co-opted because instead of going to the populations that need it most, it ends up just going to Hamas fighters.
So what the thing is that like, what kind of materials outside of just basic electricity, what kind of production would you say was going into the development of weapons that the Hamas is using?
I mean, all of the rockets that they send, it initially was custom rockets, but I believe they've got more sophisticated things now. The cash that they spend on shipping in weapons covertly from either Iran or Turkey. I don't know. I don't know the extent.
So can't you just like sanction like rocket fuels instead of electricity, food, and water?
I don't think there's a special fuel called rocket fuel. Unfortunately, a lot of the same fossil fuels run a lot of the same things.
On the truckload, it's kind of hard to sneak in like, ammo and weapons through like electricity lines. And
well, humans are creatures of high ingenuity. So believe it or not, they can repurpose other things. Like when Hamas digs up water pipes from old factories and uses them to fire fire rockets, you can actually use things for multi-purpose.
Yeah, but the materials actually you'd have to smuggle into there is not going to be coming through your fucking power outlet.
Right. Yeah. I guess my view has always sort of been, I mean, I don't think there's a way to perfectly root out Hamas. And the reality of the situation Israel is in is that they want to get rid of this organization that is in Gaza. It's embedded in Gaza, and it's going to be impossible to root them out entirely. So your options are sort of what? I mean, kill everybody there. You know, like I don't know, like try to excommunicate everyone from the region. I don't know where you go, and I guess like Destiny and Whick, both of you guys.
So why won't you just like stop shipment?
You both
go ahead.
Support a two. I think both of you support a two-state solution, right?
Yeah, the Palestinians don't. So
right, but okay, but that's my point. Like, how can you support a two-state solution if you feel like the Palestinians are totally against it? I mean, doesn't that mean it's impossible?
Well, it's impossible as long as Hamas has any kind of authority in the region, right? As long as Hamas exists, there will never be a two-state solution. So if you support a two-state solution, Hamas just has to cease to exist. And we don't need, like, look, I want to clarify this. I want to be very clear here. I don't need Hamas to literally every single Hamas member to be dead for this to happen. What we need to do is simply degrade their ability to make attacks against Israeli civilians as well as Palestinian civilians, because let's not forget that one of the victims of Hamas are the Palestinians. They kill, capture, and torture their own citizens, right? Let's not forget that. But as long as they have any authority in the region, right, this is going to be a perpetual problem. Again, that's why any kind of call for ceasefire or anything like that is just kicking the can down the road. Hamas needs to be dealt with, or there will be no peace.
So you want to go into like these lands, like the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, to basically bring it under the annexation of Israel. Like, how did that work out last time exactly? I mean, you took their land, but did that really reduce the extremism?
Look,
when?
Yeah,
over the last 70 years.
Yes.
Really? Okay, so those rockets coming from like the Gaza Strip are evidence of that.
Well, no. I would say that in 1979, when Egypt signed a peace treaty, the first bilateral peace treaty ever with Israel, it was because they had taken the Gaza Strip and the Sinai Peninsula. I would say that in 94, after the 91 Madrid Peace Conference, when Israel signed bilateral peace with Jordan, it was because they had captured territory and were a threat to them as well. So, and then I would say that when other Arab states have started to respect Israel because of their military prowess, I would say that's evidence of that as well. So it seems like capturing land from opponents who start to respect your military strength and realize they can't beat you in a war does seem to be a pretty effective way of
resolving. Yeah, it's because they're being funded by the British and the Americans. So
they're being funded by who's being funded by the British?
They're getting most of their weapons from the Anglosphere.
Not initially. In 48, they got all their weapons legally shipped in from Czechoslovakia. And they weren't, up until 66, the United States didn't ship them a single weapon. It was exclusively other British territories, and they weren't, or other European countries, but it wasn't even shipped like help. They were being purchased from them. So no, Israel didn't have anywhere near the help that Egypt and all the other countries are getting from the USSR and all the other surrounding Arab states. Unfortunately, they were too busy fighting themselves than focusing on Israel, so they weren't very successful in their military effect.
Yeah, I feel like you guys went in a totally different direction. I actually just wanted to go back to that question about the two-state solution. So, okay, like Destiny, if the Palestinians, in your view, a majority of them, and I'm sure you have like research to, verify this, a vast majority of them don't want a two-state solution, but you think ultimately that's the solution here, or that's the preferred solution here. Is there a way to even achieve that? Are you saying that that's best case scenario, but what we're going to have to end up with is the territorial divide being what it is, and the Palestinians living under these like horrible conditions, and that's just how it is.
There has to be a huge international push for peace from the Palestinian side, and until that happens, I think that Israel is going to continue to be expansionist. They're going to continue to take more territory, probably start annexing parts of the West Bank, and yeah. Right now, I think dynamically, I think both sides kind of want conflict, but it only benefits Israel, and it's hurting the Palestinians, and nobody around the world seems to be acknowledging the Palestinian side of that. They just keep screaming for peace without having any understanding of what's actually going on in the region or what people want.
I mean, I don't know about the Palestinian people, but I agree that Hamas absolutely wants conflict. Conflict helps their bottom line because they can show just shitloads of footage and images of dead kids and dead civilians over and over and over again on social media, thus making their cause more sympathetic. So I think violence, if anything, it actually helps Hamas more, right? Like it'll sort of compound the support that already exists. It might increase support from other countries and other non-state actors.
It can't be that like terrorism works, so we should let terrorism work. right?
No,
Like,
I agree with that.
Understand what you're saying, that like, yeah, they
Sure.
want civilian deaths because it helps them. Therefore, we should just never attack them. That legitimizes and makes human
No,
shields and all that be like the best way to conduct
listen,
warfare.
No, I'm not like such a peacenik that I'm saying all terrorism must be permitted. Then, of course, I guess what I'm saying is like there feels like, and it's always felt this way in this region. I mean, as long as I've read about it and learned about it and studied it, that there's this sort of notion that, well, diplomacy can just never be achieved. And I don't know if I believe that. I believe there is a diplomatic solution somewhere here. It just so happens to be that the current government in Israel and Hamas are both complicit in, erring on the side of violence. And yeah, it's difficult for both of them to come together and negotiate peace because of that. But I think an international push from the
I want
outside
to put a pin in that.
with America as an arbiter would be, I think meaningful. It might actually drive them towards peace.
If I may, let me put a pin in that, right? Because I think you're touching on something that I think is kind of goes against what you're driving at, right? We have tried, Israel and Palestine has tried, and the United States has tried to work with them. Other international actors have tried to work with them for peace for many, many years. There have been several times, Oslo Accords, right? We can look at the Clinton camp or whatever, what he did. Again, every time this happens, though, the extremists decide to blow shit up and get it and derail it and turn this into like this chaos thing. So
why do they do it?
At a certain point, these extremists that are blowing shit up every time we try to talk peace need to be blown up themselves.
So
we need
why
to
are they blowing
eliminate
things
them
up?
as much as we possibly can from the table, so they stop fucking with us when we're trying to bring actual peace to this region. Hamas needs to go.
Okay, so what would you say is the cause of this extremism? What's the driving force with this extremism that you keep talking about? I want to know. I want to understand like what your perspective is.
Does it matter why?
So
we are here in a world where it is.
Driving force for the Palestinians because they feel like the Jewish people that exist right now in Israel don't belong there. That they shouldn't have come 80 years ago and they need to be expelled.
Yeah,
and a lot of Western motherfuckers safe on their couches are cheering them on, saying, Israel should be destroyed. Go fight them, Palestinians. And they have no risk to themselves, and they're just getting Palestinians killed.
Yeah, no, is that the same reason for the Houthis as well, Destiny?
For the Houthis doing what?
Is it driving out the Jewish people out of Israel? Like the driving motive of why they're committing this extremism?
The Houthis shooting shit into the straits is the least important thing about the Houthis. That's what we're talking about now. But what do you mean when you say, is that the reason for the Houthis?
I'm asking, like, what's the general reason why they're extremists, right? You said I was strawmanning you.
I don't even know if the Houthis are extremists. That whole region of Yemen has been fucked for a long time.
You said they're blowing up shit, so what's the driving force? Like, what's the driving force?
The driving force right now for why they blow up ships?
Like, why? You said for the Palestinians, it's because they want to expel Jews from Israel, right? Or let's. I mean,
it's probably. I think that increasingly over the past like 5 to 6 years, I think that Hezbollah and Iran are having increasingly large effects on how the Houthis conduct themselves, both domestically and internationally. And I think it benefits Iran to have a proxy group shooting missiles into fucking boats into the trading lanes because it kind of pressures the whole world to come down on Israel more because Iran knows that Hamas is resistant to international pressure because they don't care. So I think that's probably the goal. If I had to guess, is Iran's goal is generally destabilization in the region because it just benefits them.
And to piggyback off that, just real quick, Iran has conducted strikes against the Kurds in Iraq and in other locations as well. Like this escalation that is happening, Iran, the actions they are taking, seem to suggest that they want this to escalate. That they think, whether they're wrong or right, they feel it benefits them if the region is further.
So what's Iran's motivation? So what's Iran's motivation?
Iran opposes essentially what they perceive as the American-Saudi hegemony in the region, and they want to stand in opposition to that.
Okay, what's their relation with Israel?
What's Iran's relationship with Israel?
Yeah.
They probably see them as essentially like a U.S.-backed state that they can fuck with through Hezbollah.
Settler colonial, so similar to the Palestinians. Okay, and then they're backing the Houthis, right?
Iran is, yeah.
Okay, so do you think that might actually, since they might have aligned causes, that might actually be what they're trying to do? Or is it just, once again, for like some vague geopolitical interest?
Since they have aligned causes, that's what they want to do. Wait,
Well, yeah. Well, like I'm trying to ask you because you said the Palestinians wanted to drive the Jews out of Israel, right? That was their motivation, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you already said that with Israel, or not Israel, Iran is a similar instance, right?
I don't think Iran cares that much. No, I think that Iran's goal is opposition to what they perceive as a Saudi-U.S. hegemony, and Israel is a part of that. But I don't think Persians or even the even the Ayatollah, I didn't give a fuck about Israel. Like really, I don't think. Other than Israel and them hate each other. Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
Well, the Houthis have been fighting regional wars in Yemen. They came down from the mountains in the fucking 90s, 2000s. Like they've been fighting along with everybody else there. The Houthis are like, that's a regional conflict. But the people that are fighting against the Houthis are also backed by a Saudi-led coalition that involves the United States. So that's probably why they don't like them, right? And they side with Iran and Hezbollah, right? So yeah.
So there's a broad like geopolitical region. Okay.
What are you getting at? Let's circumvent this. Let's get to the point.
Yeah. Okay.
What are you aiming at?
It's like it's just trying to ask a question that I don't know the answer to, and once I don't know the answer, he's going to try to fill in the gaps there.
No. The United States, Great Britain and Israel. Okay, so it is essentially going back to Israel, essentially.
What do you mean going back to Israel?
Well, that's okay. It's their stated goal. We've already agreed on that. Okay, and on top of that, they're more or less working with the Palestinians because they would have. You said get rid of the Jews from Israel, right? Would you agree with that? That's what you said.
Who's working with the Palestinians?
The Houthis have basically said that they're doing that. Like,
I don't think the Houthis care. I don't think the Houthis care about like Israel or the Palestinians. I think they care about Yemen. That's like their big thing. Do you disagree with that?
Iran funds them, right? Like so.
Well, or maybe.
No, pretty well.
As of recently, they've gotten more involved. I think the Houthis are largely self-successful, or at least they were prior to 5 or 6 years ago. What is the point? Do you disagree with any of this, or why not just like make your point instead of doing 20 questions?
I'm just trying to understand, like, why is it such an atomized thing at the beginning of the conversation with the Houthis and the Palestinians, right? We were talking about earlier, what's the driving force between this extremism, right? Which you keep talking about, over this entire conversation. So I'm just trying to understand.
What extremism? When you say extremism, that's a very vague term.
Okay, you said the extremism of Hamas when it came to Israel, and you're also talking at the beginning of the conversation when we were talking about the Houthis and their quote-unquote indiscriminate attacks on different shipping vessels.
Okay, correct, right? Yes.
Okay.
But I don't think Houthis are extreme for Yemen. That whole, even the Saudi-led coalition is like fucking raping and torturing
everyone
children.
is a monster.
Like, yeah, Yemen is fucked. Yeah. So I don't think that I wouldn't call the Houthis like extremists. Like they're all they're all pretty extreme in Yemen.
I mean, they're all over the place. I mean, that's like that's what you said, yeah. Like, okay.
Okay, cool. I guess we all agree on everything then.
Cool.
Okay.
Right.
Well, agreement on that one. That's the first agreement. Okay, I'll take that.
Well, I guess for me at least, right? To kind of bring it back to the topic at hand, to bring it back to the strikes against the Houthis and the Houthis in general and things like that. America has to be able to, or the NATO, right? Someone has to defend against piracy. And that's what this is at the end of the day, regardless of why they're doing it. They are engaged in piracy. They are attacking civilian vessels from a wide variety of countries, including Singapore, Panama, Gabon, Norway, Hong Kong, Bahamas, Marshall Islands, Cayman Islands, Liberia, the US, UK, France, Russia, all these people, right? And they are doing it seemingly indiscriminately, and someone has to make them stop. Diplomacy will not work. We've tried diplomacy before with the Houthis. It has not worked, right? Some people just need to be killed.
Oh, I'm going to say this. Oh, you want to go?
Jesus.
Yeah, I've been quiet for a little while. I feel like the strikes thus far haven't really worked either.
It's only been a few weeks, and we have degraded we have been crushing their radar sites, right? The radar sites, if we can blind them, if we can take out their radar sites, they can shoot all the missiles they want. Their accuracy is going to be so impeded that, sure, it may still be a threat, but it will no longer be a...
When we say the attacks aren't working, are they blowing up missile and radar sites?
As far as I know, yes.
So how are they not working?
Well, what I mean is the Houthis are still attacking trading vessels.
Sure, but just because you haven't achieved 100% mission success and all of their capabilities are straight doesn't mean it's not working, right? They could be attacking more, but I assume we're blowing stuff up that needs to be blown up, so it's working. It just takes some time.
According to the DOJ, we've degraded 30%. 30% of their missile capacity has been degraded or destroyed. So,
I guess my view is sort of like I'm against civilians dying, so. If 30% of their capacity has been removed from the current strikes, which have killed no civilians, I happen to think that if we want to reach 100%, it's going to be very difficult to do that without killing some innocent people, right? That's just my view.
Okay.
So I tend to think that it would be good if we could avoid that, right?
Well, why is that our responsibility? I don't understand this obsession with no civilian casualties when there is a side of conflict that is using civilians as human shields. The responsibility, the moral imperative is on them. All we can do is calculate the collateral and hope that not too many die. But the moral imperative is not on us when it's their citizens and their governments that are using human shields to attack other uninvolved parties. That's not our moral responsibility.
So if you don't care about human life, why do you think we should intervene in the first place?
When did I say
why not just be fully isolationist? If you don't really care about
I don't care about human life. I never said that. I just said that we don't have an obligation to make sure civilian casualties are zero. Our only obligation is to make sure we limit them as far as collateral is concerned, but our obligation is not to keep them at zero. Our obligation is to ensure global shipping is free.
So couldn't diplomacy be an attempt through which you would reduce casualties, right?
You don't initiate diplomacy with people that just start terrorist attacks. That's not how that works.
I mean, I guess it's not necessarily always how it has to work, but it doesn't mean it can't possibly be achieved either.
It shouldn't work. We don't want that. We don't want that to be the way of the world. That if you
start
terrorist attacking people, you get concessions.
Yeah, but you have terrorist groups regardless. With the way the world it is now, where you
would there be more or less terrorism if terrorism worked better?
I think there's more terrorism 100 years now as opposed to 100 years back. With the Ottoman Empire, when they were a multi-ethnic, multi-religious empire. So if you want to look at it over the longer and broader period, historical period, yeah, I would say the terrorism has gone up ever since we started getting involved in the Middle East, and we also had Israel coming in to the picture as well.
I'm pretty sure that's just not true at all.
I have no idea how much terrorism there was.
There's probably increases and decreases depending on what particularly is going on in the region. I'm sure since the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, but even the Ottoman Empire had pogroms against Jews, genocides that occurred within its borders, periods of expansion and contraction. It's not like the Ottoman Empire was the most. I mean, it lasted for a long time, and it was a general sense of stability.
But for a significant part of its history, it was tolerant.
It was very tolerant under the jizya system, which other people like Christians or Jews could exist within the Ottoman Empire, but just pay a special tax. Is that the case nowadays? Would you say that's a thing? Or, I mean, that's your main concern about the Palestinians taking over, is driving the Jews out or just, getting rid of them? I would say that's an increase in extremism. Well, we're talking about whether or not extremism has gone up or down over the broad history of the last 100 years since the collapse of the Ottoman Empire.
Look at
I'm saying yes, it has.
We can look at how many, if wars itself have gone up and down, and obviously it's gone down. Global conflict, national conflicts between nations.
We're talking about terrorism.
The last 100 years has gone down. Well, terrorism in itself, right? Look.
I mean, if you look at terrorism across all of Europe, if you look at the IRA bombing shit in Germany, if you look at the shit that was going, or not in Germany, I'm sorry, in Ireland, if you look at fucking Serbia and everyone else, if you look at the collapse of Yugoslavia and all of that, I feel like there was a ton of.
How's that a dispute to my point, though? How's that a dispute to my point?
Because there was a ton of regional conflict within Europe that was fucking horrible and atrocious. And I feel like for the large part, I think most of that has generally gone now. What exists today in terms of huge sectarian violence inside of Europe, even in Eastern Europe or the Balkans today, compared to, in the 90s or,
Europe. We're mostly talking about, we're talking about the Arab world. We're not talking about Europe.
Okay, we're talking about in the Arab world. Okay, well, I don't know. Fuck it. Let's go state by state. Do you think Egypt is more stable today, or do you think Egypt was more stable and less terroristic under Nasser?
I don't know. Were they doing a war on terror 100 years ago?
So wait, are we talking about?
Yeah, we're talking about whether or not terrorism has, on average, gone up because of the policies of America and the British Empire.
Yeah.
What are we counting as terrorism? Are we counting countries as terrorism or no? When the
we're
United States
about,
tries to coup somebody, is that a
we
terrorist?
We were talking about the multi-ethnic empire that existed 100 years ago, the Ottoman Empire under the jizya system, in comparison to most of the Arab world right now. You would say the Palestinians are trying to drive the Jews out because they don't want them in their lands. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know why you keep stating. Wait,
yeah,
wait. Can you tell me what point you think you're making because you restated 30 times? What point do you think you're making?
My point the entire time has terrorism gone up or down over the last 100 years?
My understanding is terrorism has fallen significantly over the past 100 years. I don't know how you would measure that though, or what particularly you're considering a terrorist.
Relatively a new term, isn't it?
That's true too. I don't even know if you would consider it.
Yeah, that's just kind of more of a bolsters my point. But go ahead.
I mean, maybe a better way to put it is we've sort of changed the way that we would define terrorism. I think terrorism, as I understand it, non-state actors who carry out attacks generally on civilians with the stated goal of shocking people into fear and all that stuff, into negotiation, I think is a relatively new phenomenon.
I just don't have. Do you have anything to show that it has gone up?
I mean, okay.
I mean, the main concern is like whether or not the Palestinians win, right? What's going to happen to the Palestinians win against the Israel state? Okay, like let's say they take down the
Jews will be
state.
gone from the Arab world.
Oh, okay, okay. So 100 years ago, when you had the jizya system under the Ottoman Empire, was that so much a concern? No, they were a multi-ethnic empire. So would you say the extremism has gone up or down?
The Ottoman Empire does not exist today.
I agree 100%.
Do you think that the Ottoman
in comparison
Empire,
to today
right, like,
and 100 years ago, would you say that they become more extreme or less extreme?
it depends on
What do you mean by extreme? I don't know what you mean by extreme.
Okay, they're less tolerant towards the Jews. Isn't that the whole discussion about the Palestinians and the Jews in Israel?
They've been killing Jews for hundreds of years there.
No,
like,
they didn't. 100 years ago in the Ottoman Empire, the jizya system allowed them to exist
you
in the
don't think
Ottoman
any
Empire.
Jews were killed in the Ottoman Empire?
We gotta chill because
I never said that. I never said that it was a perfect utopia for Jews in the Ottoman Empire, but you can say qualitatively that dislike for the Jews has gone up over time because of a British and American intervention.
So because the Ottoman Empire collapsed after losing World War I, by the way, that because those nation states now are separate nation states, that means that it's worse off than it was when it was under the Ottoman Empire?
No, that's not
He's
anything.
saying there's less tolerance towards Jews now, and part of that is because I think as a result of those nation states,
those Jews started fighting back.
Wait, hold on. When we say less tolerance for Jews, wait. When we say less tolerance, how many Jews even fucking lived in the Ottoman Empire?
I don't have an exact number, but
wait, hold on. What does the other guy have? He must know if he's pointing to this so much as an example of how tolerant the Ottoman Empire was.
Yeah, look up the jizya system.
I know what the jizya is. First of all, it's that they're...
Okay, so how is this a foreign concept to you?
Wait, it's not a foreign concept. First of all, what is jizya?
Jizya just means it's a set of religious tolerance for Christians and Jews in the Ottoman Empire, and the only requirement was they paid an additional tax to exist in the Ottoman Empire. Okay. Would you say that's less tolerant or more tolerant to different religions?
First of all, that wasn't the only
compared to now.
That wasn't the only requirement. Jizya was a special tax required to be paid by dhimmi, or people that were considered less than or not Muslim in their societies. And depending upon what particular region you lived in and what particular time period you were in with the Ottoman Empire, there were other statuses conferred upon dhimmi as well, such as sometimes people raid your shit and steal your shit. You weren't allowed to participate in some forms of government. You weren't allowed to participate in any military activity. So it really depends on what exactly you're talking about.
Okay, that's fair.
Do you think
what I'm asking is, if you're telling me that the Ottoman Empire was so unbelievably peaceful throughout the entire history of the Ottoman Empire, the entire region,
no, I never said that. I just pointed out a broad historical trend over the last 100 years. That's all I did, Destiny.
Hold on, a broad historical trend over the last 100 years. The Ottoman Empire hasn't existed for 100 years.
Your entire argument is about the Palestinians being less tolerant right now is because if they win, they're going to eradicate the Jews or kick them out of Israel. Is that not your entire argument?
Do you think in 1930, do you think that the Middle East was more stable than it is right now?
No, it's after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Probably, of course not.
You think the Middle East right now is less stable than it was 100 years ago?
I mean, it was at the end of the empire. There was still some form of unity, but there's still uprisings going on.
The end of the empire when the Armenian genocide and stuff was happening? That was more stable than it is now? Say yes. Or say no and acknowledge that, okay, thank you. All right, so no, it was not more stable 100 years ago than it is now. I think the Middle East has achieved a pretty remarkable level of stability. There are still some regional conflicts for sure. Yemen is absolutely fucked. Syria is still pretty fucked. Lebanon is still pretty fucked. Afghanistan, well, now the Taliban is probably fairly stable because now they fucking run everything. Iran's been sanctioned to fuck, but the country still runs decently well.
Yeah, how tolerant are they?
Is that what we're measuring? Are we just measuring by tolerance?
I mean, that's the whole discussion about the Palestinians and the Israelis.
No, that's not the discussion. I don't think it has anything to do with tolerance, does it?
I mean, your concern is if the Palestinians win, they're either going to exterminate or kick the Jews out of Israel.
That is their stated goal.
That's their stated goal. Can you prove that?
Yes, let me link
because
the
Hamas says every Jew that hides behind every tree is going to be eliminated or whatever. And because if you poll both regions, the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, they all support violence in exceedingly high numbers, like past 60%, in order to effect their ends. And more of them prefer a one-state solution with unequal democratic privileges than prefer a one-state solution with equal democratic privileges.
Wasn't even the Middle East?
What?
Never mind. The Armenian genocide wasn't even the Middle East? Where did it happen? That's a new one to me. All right, go on.
Okay. Yeah, I think that they would definitely want to, they probably want to push out or ethnically cleanse most of the Israeli citizens from Israel. Yes. Like the Jewish people, yes.
Okay, so would you say that's less or more tolerant than, like, say, under the jizya system? I mean, yeah, you could give examples of where that hasn't been the case throughout the entire Ottoman Empire. But my point, again, is, like, the broad historical trend of the increasing extremism in that region.
I don't know. It's probably more tolerant now because back then I don't think Jews were even allowed to buy that much fucking land in the Ottoman Empire. They would have been banned from it, probably.
I mean, I would disagree with that, but I would say that I don't know if this is even where Alistair is going, so I hope I'm not totally throwing.
He's trying to pick like one weird metric by which to fight to prove that like Middle East conditions have degraded.
No, I'm just
well, I think his point generally is that there's a trend in the Middle East, broadly speaking, of like anti-Semitism, right? It's a huge problem there. I think everybody recognizes that. And in my view, anyway, a big part of that has to do with the fact that many of the Arab states look at Israel as like a settler colonial project and something that is foreign to that region and is sort of being imposed on their people, right? And they view it as sort of like almost like a colony of Europe and the West. And
I think that was definitely true in the 30s and 40s. I think that was definitely true when they started. Yeah.
Oh, but when you say it's fair to say there's some connection between that belief in the 30s and 40s, which you call fair, and now the current wave of anti-Semitism?
I think most people have generally gotten over it.
It doesn't even matter.
So what do you think drives the
just real quick though?
Wait, hold on. What drives the anti-Semitism there?
I don't think there is anti-Semitism right now. I'm not worried about
in the Middle East. You don't think there's
there is anti-Semitism? I don't think I don't think that anti-Semitism in the Middle East right now is a big problem. Yeah, Arabs have like weird views.
Okay, so let the Palestinians win if you're not concerned about it. If they can have a multi-ethnic, multi-religious society, if you're not concerned about it.
My concern. Hold on, but you just said it earlier. Not you. I'm sorry, but your friend Nonsmoker, who was actually more insightful, was the issue wasn't against Jews. It was what they perceived as settler Europeans. That was their issue initially, and that's how they view Israel as like a settler colonial project. That's not an anti-Semitically driven one. It could have been any group of people. My guess is now with Jews, they've got like an extra religious element, but it could have been Christians or it could have been.
All right, go ahead.
Well, I guess my point here, and I think we got onto the anti-Semitism thing, or maybe I'm confused. I don't know. I got lost in all of this. But my point in bringing up the anti-Semitism thing, and my point in bringing up all of this is like this is sort of one of the origin points of violence in the region and destabilization. Is this tension or perceived tension between Muslims and Jews, or at least these certain non-state actor Arab groups and Jews, or whatever have you? And I think part of it is because they view, like I said, Israel as a settler colonial project. They also view some of Israel's conduct in the last, 75 years as being like extremely harsh and unfair and brutal. We could, of course, cite a bunch of examples where the Arab states have been aggressive towards Israel and that's been unwarranted and whatever. It goes on and on and on. But my point is this tension exists because they're viewed as like an outside entity, right?
I understand what you're saying, but I just that they would fight with themselves. Even if the Jews weren't there, the Arabs would all be fighting amongst themselves.
Why do you think that is? Just
look at the Saudi and Yemen conflict. Looked at the Saudis versus the Houthis. They're fighting together. It had nothing to do with Israel and Palestine. They're bombing back in 2014. Like they started killing the shit out of each other.
Yes. Yeah. So there's pockets in the Middle East, of course, Yemen's a great example, which were essentially like proxy conflicts throughout the Cold War, right? And then that led all the way into the, the modern era where if you look up like civil wars in Yemen, you get like 12 different fucking things.
So is your argument that every single war in the Middle East, or at least a majority of them, are a result of Israel, that Israel's existence has been the one
not at all. No.
He's more or less talking about like
let me answer him. No. What I'm arguing is that the Middle East, a vast majority of the violence and the destabilization there has been because it's been essentially like one big, or at least multiple parts of it have been proxy conflicts between the West and other powers, the Soviet Union or whoever it may be.
I understand that that's like the popular take, but I don't think that's the case.
Nonsmoker also wanted to talk about that. You said they'd be fighting even amongst themselves, even if Israel wasn't there.
Yes.
I mean, Destiny, could you follow up with that? Because I really am curious.
So I think that there's an idea. Yeah. The reason, first of all, before I give it, why don't you tell me why you think I'm wrong, Alistair?
I don't think you're wrong. I just want to know your position.
Oh, so you think they would be fighting amongst themselves?
I haven't said anything. I actually just want to know your position, dude.
I want to know your position first, rather than playing 20 questions with you.
What the fuck? I asked you the question first.
You've asked me 50 million things without asserting any original position of your own, because I don't think you understand any part of this region. So I'm just curious, why can't you tell me? Why do you think
you're going to deflect the question. Come on, dude. Don't be
I've answered literally every single question you've asked me tonight, okay? So I'm just curious, why do you think
I want to understand why you think they'd be fighting on themselves, regardless if Israel was in the region. It's because I don't know. Like, again, do I have to go back to the Ottoman Empire?
Because they're human beings.
The answer is that I don't know, and I just hate brown people. Now you tell me what you think the answer is. Why would they or wouldn't they? Go ahead.
I just think, I just think Muslims are just inherently superior. Yeah, obviously, dude. Yeah,
So
you know,
don't have
they're
an
more
answer for that.
cohesive. Neither do you. You hadn't really answered yourself.
Okay, well, I'll give you an answer. So my
Thank
answer
you.
is because even when Israel was starting to ship in citizens, what you saw among all of the competing Arab people that had initially, in letters to, there's a really famous one, but I don't remember it. But basically, Arabs were vying after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire for a pan-Arab state, okay? People wanted to recreate, okay, the Ottoman Empire without those fucking Turks running everything, okay? Which they really didn't like because the Turks did run the Ottoman Empire. You keep saying all the Arabs got along and all the Muslims, it actually was the Turks running them, okay? So they wanted to create a pan-Arab nation, okay, without the fucking Turks involved, which would have been based for them. But what you see when their conflict with Israel starts is there's actually a ton of vying against each other the entire time, vying for jockeying for that position, who's going to lead the world. So whether that was Nasser in Egypt in the 40s and 50s, or whether that was Saddam Hussein eventually with Iraq, or whether that was all of the other types of sectarian violence that occurs through other countries. The Yemen country is a really good example of that. Arabs were constantly, or whether that was the Iran-Iraq war, which some people report sees up to 1 million deaths that happened, okay, in that war, up to 2 million casualties overall.
We're still talking about post-Ottoman Empire? Because again, like, you know, you're not really
every single conflict that I just brought up was a post-Ottoman Empire conflict that didn't involve Jewish people or Israel. My point is that
even if there'd be no fighting amongst themselves, you said even without Israel. This was right after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. I want you to justify why you think that's the automatic default to the Middle East. Like, not necessarily just the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, dude.
I just said it. That wasn't because of the collapse of the Ottoman Empire.
You just gave an instance of the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. No fucking shit. What's your point here?
Those things weren't instances of the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Those were instances of Arab leaders that were vying to be leaders of a new pan-Arab state.
Okay. What's your point? Now, actually,
my point is that they would have died for that even if Israel wasn't there.
Yeah, because it was the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. No fucking shit, dude.
I don't care about the Ottoman Empire.
Wait,
the Ottoman Empire has nothing to do with it.
You're the one who gave this example to justify your reason why they'd be fighting regardless, even if Israel wasn't there. You still haven't justified your point, by the way.
Do you think Israel being there is why the Ottoman Empire collapsed?
You got mad at me for saying they'd be all hunky-dory, happy, and
do you think that Israel being there is why the Ottoman Empire collapsed?
Come on, man.
I don't know.
I'm asking you for your position, because I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that, man.
Do you think that Israel being there is why the Ottoman Empire collapsed?
No, I'm asking you why you say they're going to be fighting regardless if Israel's not there.
I already told you, because they were all fighting amongst themselves, even with Israel there.
You gave an instance of the Ottoman Empire. That was just one instance in history.
What was my instance of the Ottoman Empire?
The collapse of it.
No. Nasser was not the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. The 50s are not the collapse of the Ottoman Empire.
So, yeah, Destiny, I actually want to make a point here, because I think it's fair to say that the Ottoman Empire collapsed.
I'm sorry. Just wait. Around when do you think the Ottoman Empire collapsed? Maybe that's. Do you think the Ottoman Empire existed through like the 1950s and 60s?
When did I ever say that or even imply that, dude?
Because when I brought up Nasser, I don't know how your go-to is collapse of the Ottoman Empire.
Because you started with the Ottoman Empire, and I'm still wondering what the fuck that has to do with that. They'd be fighting with themselves, even if the Israeli state wasn't there, dude. And in fact, that's in the 50s. That's already when Israel's getting started. That doesn't bolster your argument, dude.
Wait, I'm sorry. Israel was getting started in the 50s? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Like, we're going into that.
Okay.
You had people moving into there, but still, like, how does that justify your point? They'd be fighting regardless of Israel.
So Israel arguably was starting in the 1880s. I don't know where you get the 50s from. I don't even know what we're talking about.
Okay, so then why are you even using the Ottoman Empire as an example? Because it collapsed in 1920.
Nonsmoker, what were you going to say? Nonsmoker, what were you going to say? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So I was going to mention how you talked about this Arab coalition and all that stuff, states jockeying for position and all of that. And I think that's reasonable and fair and all that. But two things. One, don't you think Israel's presence there also, I mean, enough questioning. I think Israel's presence there sort of contributes to tension between states, right? Or at least tension in the region, right? In a way that did unify many of the Arab states, but ultimately, like you saw certain states like Egypt eventually like warm up relations with Israel and all of that stuff. It created a bunch of problems, right? In addition to that, I think the U.S. and the USSR, both investing money and resources and weapons and all of that stuff in the region, also led to a lot of instability. So I guess my point is, like, had there been no interference from the outside, which of course is very pie in the sky and maybe a little ridiculous, but had there been no outside interference from the U.S., the USSR, and Israel never been established as a state, yeah, there would probably be some jockeying for position. Ultimately, one power would have come to the forefront and probably established some sort of unified, peaceful solution there.
What? Look, I don't think you can justify, and I can't, like, it's an unfalsifiable claim. I can't prove that's wrong, but it's very wishful thinking, right? So again, it's possible that may have happened. True, but it's also possible they could have descended into genocidal inter-country and rebels all over. It could have gotten worse. Like, so saying
But
that
Whick,
Israel as a result of has created tension in the region is a fair statement to make, I think.
I think also you could even take a stronger, if you want to take a really edgy position, you could argue that Israel being there might have actually been a stabilizing force for the region. You could argue that. It gave all of the Arab states a common enemy for a little bit. So when they were bullying each other, it was really just to fight with Israel. And the fact that Israel was able to prove through military might a stable state that could exist there, the Arab states, one at a time, signing peace with Israel, maybe was a stabilizing force in that particular part of the world. Maybe. It's possible.
I think initially you could make that argument, but as Israel, solidified itself and became a regional power, I think ultimately it's been more divisive.
Well, no, I think that argument gets stronger over time, right? When Israel first founded, there was a lot of conflict in the region, right?
No, but that to Destiny's point is that unified the Arab states around hating Israel, right? When I'm
but then
saying
eventually they started to like Israel because the U.S. paid them a lot of money, and then they started trading with Israel,
which is making the region more stable.
No, but it didn't lead to more stability. It led to, there, as Destiny mentioned, all these other conflicts in the region. I think part of it happened because certain states had warmer relations with Israel, other states didn't, right? And other states had warmer relationships with the West, and other states didn't. And that resulted in all of these little, conflicts, proxy conflicts. The Iran-Iraq War is a great example of that.
Yeah, but I don't think, for instance, the installation of the Shah or the assistance of the coup from the United States at the behest of fucking Britain for British Petroleum and all of that shit. I don't think that was because of Israel, right?
No,
I don't think
no.
The civil war that's going on right now in Yemen is because of Israel. I don't think Israel is a destabilizing effect in the Middle East.
It's not the only destabilizing factor, but it's one of many. And I look at Israel as an extension of the U.S. in many ways.
Well, but I don't think that first of all, I don't think that's fair. But also, secondly, in what ways, I guess, is Israel destabilizing the region? We'll say in the past 20 or 30 years, aside from its inter-regional conflict with Palestine. I feel I don't think they're contributing.
The best example is obviously the one you asked me not to cite, and I would say that the best example would be that conflict with Palestine, which is leading to destabilization now.
Well, but when you say that, you're talking about the Houthis?
The Houthis, Hezbollah, and I think Iran would probably be a disruptive force there regardless.
Sure. But even the Houthis, their origination as Haiti, Shia tribes, people, and everything in Yemen, all of this civil war, you said it yourself, Yemen has been in civil wars for the past 100 years with itself. The Houthis just happen to be the current leaders on that civil war right now in terms of controlling territory and everything. But I don't think that's because of Israel. I don't think Israel has any impact on that whatsoever.
They have no impact on the Houthis coming to power. I think this goes back to my original argument that they have an impact on how the Houthis conduct themselves in that region, right? Their view is if we attack international shipping with some supposed, I know you guys hate this, it's just my opinion, this is their excuse, this is what they claim, that we have a justifiable region to fuck shit up, right, in this strait. Okay, now we can sort of assert ourselves as a legitimate regional power. Had it not been for this conflict between Israel and Hamas, then perhaps there would have been no strikes on shipping vessels. And my evidence for that would be that the Houthis have been active in that region for years and years, and they haven't tried anything like this.
Well, they have, though. I need to look up attacks in the Straits. I'm not sure how much
to this extent.
Not to this extent, I agree. But they literally gotten ballistic missiles from Iran that they've shot into Riyadh, the Saudi Arabian capital. They've literally shot ballistic missiles from.
Yeah, but that was because the Saudis were backing the other groups that they're fighting with for control over Yemen. I'm saying
I understand, but that's not related to Israel, right? And Egypt was backing groups in Yemen as well, and Iran was backing groups in Yemen as well. Everybody's kind of but these are all Arab states. I don't think I don't think Israel is backing
I'm
anybody
pretty sure
in
Israel
Yemen.
stayed out of it for the most part. I can't remember. At least I am not aware of any side Israel is backed.
Israel, you could tie into this recent conflict.
But I mean, they say that, but I think that they Iran wants to fight with Saudi Arabia, and Iran will look for any reason to get their proxies to fight with Saudi Arabia. It happens to be Israel, but if it was any other Sunni majority country there, it might be just as much that. It might be the country of Ras-al-Hamid that that Hamas is operating out of, and that Houthis are shooting missiles into the ocean to support.
I'm of the belief that the Houthis aren't necessarily just an Iranian proxy. I don't know if that's exactly the argument you're making. I think they have their own agenda here, and I think their own 100%. agenda. Right. So they're trying to establish their own autonomy, I guess would be a way to put it, right? Like
Yes.
we can conduct ourselves however we want and fucking deal with it. And I think part of their justification for that is this conflict in Gaza. And, you know, look, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that you guys don't see that connection whatsoever. I think that it's a big part of their messaging. I think in their justification.
I just don't think it matters, right? I don't think it matters at the end of the day.
And what you're saying is true in that, like the Houthis' takeover of the government and everything was largely in response to the administration, 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔, that was supported by Saudi Arabia and that coalition before, right? Yeah, for sure. A lot of people didn't like him for a lot of good reasons. And that was part of where the Houthi gained a lot of their fighting force and a lot of the support through that country. However, as the Houthis became more established and were fighting more and more with Saudi Arabia, right? Because now Saudi has a coalition that they lead where they go airstrikes and everything. The Houthis originally do not want to be taking part in any conflicts on behalf of Hezbollah and Iran, because the whole part of the whole condemnation of like Saleh and prior governments was like, oh, you're just stooges of the West, you're stooges of their governments. However, over the past like 5 or 6 years, as the Saudi coalition attacks have stepped up, now I think the Houthis, well, not now, but prior to this, they're looking at other countries like, okay, well, fuck, now we're going to get kind of fucked. We know how to conduct war well. We've kind of proven ourselves. Now I think they look to Hezbollah and Iran for assistance in terms of weapons and assistance in terms of targeting. And as a result of that, they're going to be taking part more in Iranian-backed affairs, because Iran's not just going to support that they don't get anything at all out of it. And while fighting with Saudi Arabia is good, destabilization of the Red Sea and everything is also good, because now they've got like even more conflict in the region, and Iran is a loser right now. So any conflict probably benefits them, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that's actually a very good telling of the whole history with Saleh and all that stuff and how the Houthis came to power. And I think that's all well and good and valid and, you know, would explain why they have different interests now than when they initially came to power. It's kind of interesting. They actually brought Saleh back and formed a coalition with him in 2016. I think, yeah. 2016.
And they ended up, they killed him, right?
But yeah, like a year later killed him, which is, you know, but it's this rapidly changing political climate there because it's ultra unstable. And I think if you look at the Houthis' track record, it doesn't actually indicate like some great vision of like these goals, these well thought out goals. It's more like these opportunistic moments where they do this or they do that or they carry out that strike or whatever. And this is just one moment where they say, hey, there's a moral justification for this supposed. We have an excuse. Right. And we're going to do this and assert ourselves. We know we're probably going to get attacked back, and that's going to make us look sympathetic. Right. I think
the reason why now is because they're getting roped into the whole Iran-Hezbollah paradigm. Because if Iran and Hezbollah didn't exist, assuming I'm being like as fucking unbelievably charitable as possible, Houthis and the people that support the Houthis really just kind of want like a stable Yemen. And they didn't really appreciate the 33 fucking year long presidency of Saleh, who refused like on 3 or 4 different occasions to actually transfer power, despite saying over and over again that he would. And they don't appreciate the Saudis trying to bomb and destroy their fucking shit all day and fuck their people over. So like, you know what? The Houthis are the ones that emerged as the powerful leaders in the area, and they're the ones that are, you know, kind of taking point at everything. However, I don't think they ever would have been involved in bombing vessels and shipping lanes if it wasn't because they saw Iran and Hezbollah could provide a lot of support to them. So when they say they're attacking it because of Gaza, that's half true, but it's really because of Iran's relationship with Israel and Saudi Arabia.
Those two things.
If Iran and Hezbollah didn't exist, do you think the Houthis would be targeting shipping lanes?
No, I don't think they'd have the capabilities, honestly.
Or even the desire. They're already that country's already like fucking falling apart. That country is fucked in so many different ways. Like, why would they want to draw more negative attention? Like, I don't think that the Houthis are the same as like Hamas, where Hamas wants civilian deaths. Hamas needs civilian deaths because that's how they function. I don't think the Houthis are functioning like a terrorist group. They're just like a militant tribe that is like establishing.
Is that we have been able to strike their sites without civilian casualties because they, at least in this conflict, aren't stationing their civilians there. If this was Hamas, if Hamas was doing it, these would be schools or hospitals that they would be firing. That would be their radar.
Houthis would lose their moral right very, very quickly. I think Palestinians feel like we'll all, or not all of them, but a lot of them feel like, fuck it, we will die to fight Israel. I don't think Houthis feel like we'll die to bomb merchant shipping vessels or people that support the Houthis. I think they would lose support pretty quickly if they were to start engaging in like destructive behavior like that. But the support they're getting from Iran and Hezbollah, I think, makes up for it right now. My general feeling.
I mean, listen, I somewhat respect that, but it goes to what Whick said before about like no proxy conflicts in the Middle East. It's like unfalsifiable. Like there's no way to know what would happen if Hezbollah and Iran weren't regional powers that had wanted to form some kind of axis of resistance. But what I know for sure is that the Houthis have their own interests, right? They're not merely a puppet of Iran. And I think, again, part of their interest is, I mean, to be fair, I think that they've sort of achieved their goal, right? They want to be seen as a legitimate power, and fucking half the world is talking about them now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they've forwarded themselves as a legitimate, or seemingly legitimate force, right?
Well, then we were happy to oblige them in that if it means kicking their shit in, killing their radar sites, killing their missile capacity, and they can stop now. If they've achieved their goal, they can stop now. But they're not stopping now, right? I think that, like, this idea that what they want, and I think you're right, is that they want a larger legitimacy. But I think that by not striking them and getting America to back down, it would give them even more legitimacy, right? That would make them like heroes, right? To beat the great Satan, so to speak, right? To beat the West, that would be heroic. They would, their esteem in a lot of people's in that region's eyes would go up immensely. So again, we cannot allow that to be happening. We have to be able to show that we have degraded their ability to strike at civilian shipping vessels throughout the region. We cannot let them blockade this area of the world. We have to stop that from happening. And if it takes us sending a few carrier groups for a few weeks, few months, I think that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, this is, honestly, it could be even like steel manning your position. But I do kind of want to mention, like, Reagan's actions in Lebanon, right? Like, Reagan withdrew the Marines, right? And essentially, made it seem like there was a point at which he would not support Israel's actions there. Okay. Very different in many, many ways. But I guess my point is ultimately, like, Hezbollah, I think, gained a ton of legitimacy out of the end of those conflicts with Israel, right? And I guess you're expressing some concern that we would give more credibility to the Houthis if we withdrew. But at the same time, whether
not
or
just
not
that though, like that's yes, but not just that. It's that you would encourage other actors in the region to behave similarly if they can know that they can get their goals accomplished by attacking civilians.
I think there's also something to be said for, like, the U.S. will fuck your shit up if you act inappropriately, and people try to be mindful of that. Like, I would say that part of the reason why we were able to pull out of Afghanistan without the Taliban just, like, bombing the fuck out of all of our shit, and by not doing it, is because they genuinely wanted us to get the fuck out. Like, the Taliban did not want us there anymore, and they know that if they were to engage in attacks like that, there would be another surge, and their shit would be fucked up for however many more years, we got the political will to stay there. So I think that, like, I think the U.S. works as a decent deterrent for ensuring relative tranquility in some respects.
A lot of the results of a lot of these the heightened tensions in the world, right, is because perceived or real, people see American hegemony as being less, right, as kind of fading away, as America having less power than we did back in the 90s, right? And I think that we're seeing the world fracture because of that. We're seeing this regional conflicts are increasing. Right, we're seeing this rising tensions in a lot of the world, not just in that region either. We can look at China saber rattling at Taiwan, right? Like, the collapse of Pax Americana is going to lead to death and destruction throughout the world, right? And I don't want that. I want to stop that from happening. I would like America to be strong again in the world. I want us to be a leader in the world, because if not us, then who? And the who is very clear. It'll be either Xi Jinping or Putin. And I don't want either of those things to happen. So.
I mean, I think trying to, like, reestablish the Pax Americana, which I think is, to some extent waning because objectively, our actions throughout the rest of the world have pissed a lot of people off, and they're seeing the rise of powers like definitely China and to a lesser extent Russia as like opportunities for large global powers that they would prefer to have a favorable relationship with. I don't think that the best response to that is necessarily carrying out more violent action, thus pushing different regions of the world more into China's circle or Russia's circle. I don't know if there's much that we can do about that. But I certainly think we don't have to, pour gasoline on a fucking fire.
I definitely, I agree with you.
Do you think this is going to also more or less like push people to China and Russia, or more the east side of the hemisphere? Like, again, because like dictating from terms and conditions from above really only works when you have a monopoly on power, and the United States isn't really staying hegemon for the next 100 years or so like that. That's entirely debatable whether that's going to be the case 100 years from now.
So I think that the rest of the world does appreciate the United States doing what it's doing. I think that we have an issue with, I call it Iraq PTSD, where we start to do every single foreign policy decision is like, oh my God, it's just like Iraq. And I don't think that's the case. I think that a much stronger case can be made for intervention, even financially, into places like Ukraine. And I think that like arguments can be made to defend people like Israel. And I think arguments can be made to bomb places in Yemen that are shooting missiles into the sea. Just because we've made some mistakes with our foreign policy doesn't mean that we have to restrict ourselves from participating in foreign policy at all.
Afghanistan.
When the mission in Afghanistan was good, the nation building afterwards was bad.
Yeah, like once we left, it basically collapsed and went back to the way things were, like before we were in there.
Was just poor
except the
execution,
Al
but the goal
Qaeda
was
is
fine.
not there anymore. Now the Al Qaeda is in Yemen, getting butt fucked by the Houthis. So the I think we have to look at like what is the goal of U.S. foreign policy? What are areas that we could contribute well in, and what are areas that we shouldn't contribute in? So like for instance, I think that our involvement. Well, I would say that our involvement with the Houthi stuff, this is an example of where the U.S. military power can shine. Literally the entire world supports it. Again, on that UN Security Council resolution, Russia and China abstained from voting against it. They just like, were like, oh, well, be careful, guys. But like, obviously they don't want the shipping lanes to get fucked. So I think that broadly speaking, I think most people in the world right now support the United States mission. I think everybody thinks we have a moral authority to be there. I don't think there's any country
I don't even think they're concerned about their shipping being attacked. Like the all Chinese crew has been a thing that the ships have been using.
But Beijing gave a warning just the other day to Houthis to cut it out, or they're going to risk.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, this
that was a public pressure for Iran yesterday.
Talking point is not true. I don't know why you keep repeating it. It sounds like you got like two numbers off a website and you're just arguing. The reality is the price of shipping containers has skyrocketed. The reality is,
but that doesn't chip
traffic through the Suez Canal is cut in half. Okay, right now the perception around the world is that it is not safe to ship stuff through that strait, and insofar as the United States can enforce safety, we ought to, because it's our, if there's any noble mission we could ever have, it was to make sure that people feel safe sailing ships through the world.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying. First of all, I mean, we probably disagree about lots of the examples you cited, Ukraine and all that stuff, but we don't have to go down that fucking turnpike necessarily. I would argue that there's a bunch of examples of our interference other than Iraq, and I might have to go back more than 20 years, that were examples where we got involved in these different regions and created all sorts of instability and problems, and it didn't end up making, increasing our view in a favorable way. I
think we should be careful though, right? Like when we say we got involved in all these regions in a horrible way, like was South Korea a huge mistake?
I mean,
don't ask.
What about
argue yes.
So you think so? What about like Kuwait? Was that a mistake? That intervention against Saddam Hussein?
Kuwait is a unique example, and I think all of these are unique examples. On the one hand, you could make the argument that getting involved in Kuwait helped the Kuwaiti people, and it was a very magnanimous gesture to these innocent people who are being invaded. I would also say that a lot of our actions in supporting Saddam Hussein to begin with probably enabled and emboldened him to carry out military actions like that in the first place.
But I got a question. If you're concerned about world trade, like Destiny, I got a question for you. Like, wouldn't it be better and more cost-effective to talk to Israel and maybe do like a land back program or something like that to the Palestinians and come with a two-state solution? Like, I don't know. I'm just going to spitball here.
Palestinians don't want a two-state solution or land swap, so no.
They don't want a land back?
It's just
what do you mean land back? What do you mean by
like give them
back?
back some land back? That's what I'm saying.
Land? Like all of Israel?
Oh, not all of Israel, but sure as a hell a lot more than just the West Bank and the Gaza Strip.
No, why would they?
Well, you're saying they don't want that? Like, what are you saying here?
There were deals. The Palestinians had the ability to negotiate deals in 2000 and a little bit onwards, and they rejected it. It seems like they just want a one-state solution.
Do you think they would settle for maybe giving them a little bit of additional land, more so than what they have right now? I think they would say yeah.
No,
and I think that'd be a more cost-effective way than trying to do.
I don't think they would. No. The majority of Palestinians don't support a two-state solution right now. Israel.
I think they'll take some land cessions more than zero. I would bet that.
It's never going to be more than the 67 borders, and that's the starting point. And even from there, when they had an opportunity under Arafat for 95%, and I think under the Clinton parameters, they had 97% of the land to be back, they still walked away from those negotiations. So it seems like they just want.
Yeah, but then use that as a justification to take more, if I can remember correctly.
What do you mean justification to take more?
Well, they kept expanding to the point that we have the borders now. Is that not correct?
Israel, you mean?
The Green Line or
between the West Bank and
I mean they've continued to expand settlements, but like there are still people still recognize like the 67 borders for whatever that means.
Sure, but then like giving them some land back, would that not at least mitigate some of the solutions by pulling the Israelis back and say, okay, we're going to give you some land back, maybe we can have some peace here?
Why would they expect to have peace if they give them some land back?
Well, because it's their land. They're upset about the Israelis taking their land in the first place, correct?
Firstly, it's not their land and it was never their land. And secondly, they want all of it back, not just some of it.
What do you mean it's not their land? They've been living there.
I'm sorry, where do you live? Do you own that land?
I don't own my land, but I live here. I wouldn't like to be forcibly removed from my land and told to go move someplace else because it's somebody else's land.
Tough shit. Most of the people that are in Israel today are Jews that were excised from other Arab countries during all of the pogroms and everything that happened every time Israel won a war against other Arab states. I mean, that's how it goes sometimes. I'm sorry. It sucks,
but that's, you would agree at least that like events like the Nakba and all of that kind of stuff were like at least pretty brutal, right? People have a right to be upset about that. Perhaps one way of relieving the tension there would be, I don't know, some kind of like land reparations is what he suggested.
I feel like the way that
if you want to do the cost-effective way at mitigating this, why not give them some land back, and then maybe the Houthis will actually pull back some of their attacks on shipments? Because your concern is global trade, right?
Because they don't.
I think that's a lot more cost-effective than launching a bunch of missiles.
Because one, we're not even talking about land back for the current conflict. We're talking about the elimination of Hamas. Number one. Number two. Why would you give land back without like a full peace deal on the table? Number three, Palestinians don't seem to want land back. They seem to want a one-state solution. And number four, you don't even have a cohesive body to negotiate on behalf of the Palestinians. Okay. Number five, sorry, go ahead.
Go for it. No, I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Number five, I think that Iran and Hezbollah and the Houthis are still going to be motivated for regional conflict against Israel because they don't like the Saudi-U.S.-Israel alliance there. I don't know. How many other reasons do you want?
Oh, but my main point was that, okay, yeah, sure, maybe they want a one-state solution. They want all the Israelis out of that region. Okay, I can grant you that. But what makes you think they won't say, take a little bit land back, give them a little bit land back and say, hey, let's have a peace here. That something's better than nothing. Would you not agree?
They rejected it in 2000.
I mean, I would argue some sort of peace settlement would require probably like at least the removal of Israeli settlements in the West Bank and Gaza. Well, I mean, Gaza they've already left, but the West Bank.
I want to short circuit a lot of this. Look, if I believed, right, that what you were saying, Alistair and Nonsmoker, would work, right? If we just gave them a little land, that the Houthis would stop, there would be peace in the region, all would be well. I would be for it. I'd be great. I'm like, if it would work, it would be great. The problem is, if I may finish, the problem is I don't think it will. There is no evidence to suggest it will. In fact, there's plenty of evidence to suggest otherwise. That, in fact, by giving in to the demands of the Houthis right now, that it would only embolden them and other actors in the region to continue to engage in this kind of practice every time they have a disagreement or they want something or concession from the West.
Tell you what, so, give them back some of the land, and then you have my permission to fucking bomb the fuck out of them. If they
I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I think that
what's the
there would be. I think there would be concessions, like when Israel withdrew from the Gaza Strip occupation and allowed elections back in 2004, 2005, that area, right? Israel tried that. What happened? Hamas got power, and they immediately threw everyone that didn't agree with them off a roof, right? They engaged in a coup in their own country because they wanted to kill all the Jews, right? And so we have very recent, this wasn't like 50 years ago, this was less than 20 years ago that this happened. Obviously, right, there's plenty of evidence to suggest that giving in to them just isn't going to work.
I mean, I don't think
give me some instances where you give it back to them. Give me some instances where
you withdrew from the occupation of Gaza. Well, not me. Israel withdrew from the occupation of Gaza in 2005, right?
Yeah, I don't think that just giving into them is a reasonable way to put it, or even a good solution in saying, okay, well, just remove the settlements, dust your hands, and that's it. But I think that should be part of peace negotiations, right? Like removing the settlements from the West Bank. Obviously, that's like a huge source of tension there. It's a huge, look, part of diplomacy, I think, is you're looking at like a bunch of conflagration points, and you're trying to put out as many fires as you can, right? And it is stupid to say, okay, well, you just, resolve one little thing and everything else will work out. What I'm suggesting is maybe a lot of these things could be part of a bigger solution here, right? Like maybe resolving this thing in Gaza, which is, not a simple solution at all, but part of it could be like, yeah, we're going to negotiate, removal of settlements in the West Bank. We're going to negotiate a return to this, that, and the other borders. I don't exactly know what the demands would be, right? And then, on the on the side of the Palestinians, some sort of security guarantees, some sort of like, I don't know, like a ceasefire, like permanent ceasefire agreement or something. Like diplomacy can achieve a lot of fucking things. There's a ton of precedent for that. And I think, unfortunately, you have to negotiate with the other side that you want peace with. Right at a certain point.
I think that your point is actually 100% true. I think that there does need to be like huge negotiations that involve like very, very, very multilateral negotiations. Iran has to be part of the conversation. Probably the United States. Probably Saudi Arabia. Definitely Israel. Right. But I think that the issue is that it feels like the Arabs have kind of given up on the Palestinians and the Palestinian cause, and they don't really care much about them anymore. And it seems like they're more invested in kind of this like conflict going on with Iran. And so if the Arab states aren't really invested much in the Palestinian cause and don't care to negotiate with them, and if Iran is like the main threat, and if Israel just sees the Palestinians as kind of like a nuisance, there's basically nobody that's negotiating on their behalf, and there's like almost no incentive to figure out like what to do with them, because it seems like right now they've been basically wound up by the fucking world for 80 years to fight, and that's all they know and that's all they want right now. And I think that's like the challenge with Israel is how do you negotiate with an enemy that really just like wants you dead? Because that's not just a Hamas problem, it seems to be widespread like a Palestinian problem, and that's like a very difficult thing to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, that's reasonable, and I understand that. I think that any sort of peace negotiation, like you said, would have to be multilateral, and that would mean, I think, reaching some point of like a positive relationship between the U.S. and Iran, which seems like totally far out there and ridiculous to suggest. But, look, I actually listened to a little bit of your discussion with Ben Shapiro, and I kind of felt like that was sort of your position, is that, maybe I'm totally wrong, but that we don't want like this ultra hostile relationship with Iran. Like it's actually bad for everyone. Maybe like there's some opportunity there somewhere for like a peaceful, rapprochement. Like we can talk things out. And I think if we stabilize or try to stabilize that relationship, it can lead to all sorts of other possible prospects for peace. Gaza being one of them.
I agree. I don't know enough Iranian history to know why that is impossible, but it seems to be impossible right now. But I feel like if peace somehow could be reached between like the U.S., Iran, and Saudi Arabia, somehow, I don't know what would have to happen to make that happen, but if it did, I feel like literally all the other dominoes would fall into place. I think everything else would be trivial to solve. That's my feeling.
I agree too. I just, again, and in this moment in time, where we are now, when we look at the reality of the situation now, that is an untenable goal in the next, I think, year, 5, even 10 years. I don't think it's happening. And right now, as we speak, Houthi missiles are being fired at civilians. And regardless of what we want or what the ideal solution would be, we have to stop that from happening. That has to stop. That just has to stop. And negotiations, I don't think will stop it. We can just degrade their ability to do it. And it won't stop entirely, probably, but we can degrade it enough so that it's much, much less effective for them. That's all. That's my thoughts. I don't know. We're kind of circling here, so.
No, I mean, I feel like we're kind of coming around on a little bit of common ground, which is good. I would also say that, like, I mean, maybe this sounds totally far out there, but having a better relationship with a country like China would be beneficial in all of these, various conflicts. I think that they're the second, as the second largest economy in the world, a major military power, having a good relationship with them, people might look at like some sort of negotiation with China, America, and X being a good, basis.
Yeah, but I'm not willing to sacrifice the Taiwanese people, for example, to do that. So.
Well, yeah, and I understand, you're very protective of Taiwan and all that, but I don't know if there's like an imminent invasion. I think that whole narrative is like very overblown.
I disagree. Okay. What I think. So.
Well, no, I mean, I don't know. Alistair, do you have anything you want to throw out there?
I don't have any final thoughts, Good discussion.
Like where Armenia was, or?
Well, I mean, I guess that's it. This was a good discussion. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Appreciate the time, Destiny. I know you're a busy guy. And
yeah,
Whick,
appreciate the time.
Whick, you have lots of like pizza rolls to eat and shit like that. So I appreciate you, donating your evening as well.
Okay. Well, thank you. Gang, if you like this kind of shit, remember I stream, and you can check me out too. YouTube at WhickTV. I have a Kick channel, WhickTV, and a Twitch channel as well, WhickTV, you can check out. Could always use support. And thank you for the invite, Nonsmoker. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone want to check me out? Twitch.tv/nonsmoker, non_smoker.
YouTube, Alistair the Great, WhickTV. But appreciate you having me here. This has been a good conversation. Been very heated, but other than that, I don't have much else to say.
Destiny, who are you?
YouTube.com/Destiny, Kick.com/Destiny.
Okay.
All right, boys.
See you
Thanks.
guys later. Bye.
Enjoy the conversation. Thanks for having us on. Peace.
Peace.
What fun, gang. What fun. Did you all enjoy that? Did you all have a good time? Here, let me show my pretty face again for you all, gang. Yeah, hi, Short Fat Otaku. You got here just in time. It just ended. We just had the whole discussion. What did you guys think? Did I do well? Did I do okay? Did I is the Whick name shamed, or did I honor it? What do you think? What do you think? Let me know. Gang, we got some great shows coming up too, right? Does anyone want to come and talk about it with me real quick? Like, does anyone have anything to say? Anything they want to disagree with me on? Anything like that? I don't know. It's weird when I'm not the host, right? It's weird when I'm not the one that's running the show. It's a different place to be. Y'all gave that skinhead a good debate for sure. Well, I'm glad he liked it. I'm glad you liked it. I hope it was enjoyable. I hope you had fun at the very least. I hope it was entertaining. And you guys, we have some more entertaining stuff coming up next week too. Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm sorry. Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have Brianna Wu. We're going to have Pisco. We're going to have Lactoid. We're going to have Counterpoints. And we're going to be discussing the recent border dispute. What are your thoughts there? Okay. What do we think? Are we headed to... I think just today, Biden gave Abbott a deadline. A deadline to let federal agents in to remove the razor wire. I'm not sure if the deadline passed or not, but gang, there's a lot of posturing. What is it, 25 states now, 26? Maybe you guys know the exact number have said that they support Texas and they're defying of the federal government here. Yeah, I would love to hear what you guys have to say. If Dev wants to come on for a few minutes, that's perfectly acceptable. You can come on and say hi and say hello. Sitch and Adam did a good breakdown on the border issue. It's a complex one, right? I'm not a legal scholar. Like when it comes down to the legal arguments regarding whether or not Abbott has that authority or not, I'm just it's out of my depth. But I can look at, right? What I can look at is the actions both groups are taking, whether they're escalatory in nature. We can look at the morality of it all, right? And at the end of the day, as a layman, and I want to stress as a layman, federal authority overrides state authority when they come into conflict, right? States do have the ability, right, to put their own house in order, right? And there is limitations on what the federal government can tell you to do as a state, right? But if a state law comes in conflict with a federal law, the federal law, at least as I understand it, generally overrides that law. And as the Supreme Court has entered an injunction and given permission, basically, for the feds, right, Biden, to come in and remove that, I think that's fine. Let's talk to Sansol for a minute. Sansol, hi.
Howdy. How's it going?
How'd you like it? How'd I do? What? Give me a rating, 1 to 10.
A rating on your performance or the whole debate
both.
as a whole?
Give me one on the debate as a whole, whether you enjoyed it, etc. 1 through 10. And then give me how did I do?
I think that you did excellent as always, Whick. All right.
Suck that dick.
The debate was fucking cancer. I don't know who the twink was that kept on fucking actually the Ottoman Empire they were really nice, and it all went downhill when the Ottoman Empire went away. Like that shit was fucking cringe as fuck, and it
I
lasted
honestly don't
way
know enough
too
about the
long.
Ottoman Empire to really kind of give a thought on
I
it.
barely know anything, and they sounded like they knew nothing about it. Holy fuck. But I'm not gonna stay for very long because I'm sick and my voice is super fucked.
Yeah.
But what is your opinion on the whole border situation?
Well, I think this is just grandstanding. I think that the Abbott and the other governors are grandstanding. They think they can win this fight, right? They think this will give them an edge. This will be able to kind of spit in the eye of Biden. I think they're playing with fire. I don't know if they're right, though, right? I don't know if they have the law on their side. And if they do, they do. So yeah, that's where I'm standing. It's very unclear on it, right? I do think that we have an issue at the border. There's absolutely an issue at the border. It needs to be addressed. However, do we need
Sounds
razor
like you
wide
hate
to
Mexicans.
do that?
Jesus.
Huh? Say one more time.
It sounds like you hate Mexicans. Jesus. Didn't realize that about
Jesus,
you.
I do not hate Jesus. Okay, Jesus is great. No, I like. I have no problem with immigration. Right? It's just I'm not an open borders guy. I don't believe in that. I just don't. I don't believe in open borders. I think that a controlled border that is more able to let people in than it is now is good. I think that we should have more immigration from certain sources. Absolutely. But just opening the borders entirely, as some seem to want, is just silly. Also, I think people LARPing about civil war on both sides are silly, right? Posting pictures about how, now the Union's going to destroy the South again. And the South being like, the South is rising up. Those LARPers are playing with fire as well. They're
Listen,
stupid.
I've gotten a lot of mileage out of some General Sherman memes. Don't make me come back
Look,
down there.
I know, but it's
Did someone say Georgia is a battleground state?
I get the meme. I get the meme. I understand the meme. I just think at a certain point, right? I know you're memeing, but there are plenty of people where I'm not fucking sure if that's an actual meme or not.
Well, here's the thing.
And that's the problem.
I think that a lot of people, they are putting too much on what's going on. It's really bad, obviously. Like Joe Biden, if he hasn't already, should probably federalize the Texas National Guard just to say fuck you. Like the federal government has supremacy as according to the fucking Constitution, and just because you're Texas, you don't get to do whatever the fuck you want. Yeah, Texas should do that. We should slap down all of these fucking little petulant fucking games that they're constantly trying to play. Like, oh, well, we think that immigration is the worst fucking thing that's ever happened to America. Well, what's that? We actually have the chance to get like 80 to 90% of all the things that we want on an immigration bill because the Democrats want to get funding to Ukraine. Man, but that would be really bad for Donald Trump.
Yeah,
so we're just going to jettison.
That's when I talk about them not actually caring about the issue and playing with fire, that's what I'm referring to, right?
Yeah, no, the Republican Party has to die and be reborn. Holy fucking shit. Like, I thought that, when I was in high school, I thought that I hated the Republicans because, they're, callous and business people and all of that. Then this iteration of the Republican Party came around, bro, nuke them from orbit. It needs to stop. It's actually fucking unbelievable. The shit that they are doing and trying to get away with and pretending like they're the fucking victims. I want them to fucking feel what it feels like to be a fucking victim for once in their fucking life instead of fucking pretending all the fucking time. Jesus fucking Christ. Get me the fuck out of this country if this is what the next, decade is going to be like.
Artemis,
Jesus.
Hello.
Is there someone else in here? Sorry.
I guess sounds like you're going to end up moving then, because it's probably going to be what the next decade's like.
Well, hopefully Mitch McConnell finally fucking kicks the bucket. I'm not one to celebrate the death of people that I disagree with. Like, I didn't like it when people were doing it to Rush Limbaugh or any of these people. Holy fuck. Mitch McConnell needs to fucking just
that man's evil.
Like he has done so much fucking damage to like every single aspect of our fucking federal government. Holy fuck.
I'm going to say this. That man's evil. That man is the fucking literal Grim Reaper of legislation, and I find it funny. Because for some reason, Democrats don't understand the concept of incremental change and want to push these fucking bills that they know he's going to kill.
Hold on. It's actually the exact opposite. What are you talking about?
What do you mean the exact opposite?
The Republicans will blockade the entire process of passing any legislation or even allowing a president to get his Supreme Court pick unless they are the ones that have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And if they don't have all three of those things, they will sit there and they will stonewall the entire fucking process until they do. What the fuck do you mean? Like the Democrats aren't willing to do anything unless they get everything they want?
Hold on.
Did I misunderstand you? Sorry.
I know.
Maybe I misunderstood you.
Yeah, I think you're woefully reading the tea leaves wrong here. For one, the Democratic Party is a very, very vindictive institution that will like shred fucking like norms and fucking regulations to get what they want, and then inevitably the evil motherfucking Grim Reaper of Mitch McConnell will come in next term and fuck shit up because the Democrats opened the door for him to do so. Because they remove the safeguards on him.
Can you give me like an example of the Democrats doing anything on the level of fucking blocking a Supreme Court until they Supreme Court pick until they get power?
Let me think about that. Because
there isn't, because it's the only time in U.S. fucking history it's ever happened. There is nothing on that level because it's the first and only time it's ever happened in our history.
I mean, there was the initial like Supreme Court, but the Democrats weren't around during that time, so I don't really know if that counts. Because that was huge.
Let's keep it to within the last 100 years. How's that?
I was going to say.
Oh, that was a huge crisis for the Constitution right off the bat for the Supreme Court. I don't understand. Like we forget that happened.
Yeah, is there like a version of like the Democrats doing anything like January 6th? Is there an example of the Democrats?
Yes, there is.
Are you going to say the Civil War?
No. Well, no. I mean, they what did they do? They were like threatening Supreme Court justices at their houses. They were attacking the Supreme Court building. They were firebombing fucking. Oh, hold on. You can't just say that because they are literally attacking the fucking institutional foundation of the United States, its courts, and its buildings.
Was any of this directed or supported by anyone in office?
Hold on. Let me go pull that shit up. Oh god, what was it? The Antifa are not real.
This is spiraling. I don't know if I have the time for tonight to go through all this.
The entire you guys, I understand this fucking mindset of the Republicans have only ever done this. We've never done that. You guys are bullshitting here.
The Democrats have problems. I just don't think problems.
Holy fuck! That is the simplest fucking way to put it. The Democratic Party is full of corruption, evil fucking people. Almost
I didn't know we were going to get into this fucking conversation. I didn't realize I was talking to a literal retard. Holy shit!
Oh shit!
I don't know.
A retard.
I don't know
what
kind
of. Go with that.
This
is why you guys are fucking losing in terms of this next election. I don't understand why you guys are playing these.
Joe Biden has been campaigning for 1 week or so.
Yeah.
And he's 1 point behind Donald Trump in national
what fucking poll are you looking at when that is the case?
The last time I looked at the 538 thing.
That's fucking nice because in the average he's underwater by 8 points roughly in the general. I don't know where the fuck you're getting your information from, man.
Fuck, I don't know where I fucking saw that. We had a whole fucking conversation about it last night, and someone else looked it up, and now I don't remember where the fuck it was.
I don't like every poll that has come out, and now every morning I go look, he's still fucking 8 points underwater by every metric. But I'm even counting the hidden Trump
every
voters.
metric.
Every
Well,
pollster.
there are polls
Oh.
that have come out recently. I've seen two in battleground states where Trump is underwater
Oh.
when compared to Biden. And I have to remind everyone, we don't have a popular vote wins system. We have an electoral vote wins
Yeah.
system. So if you win enough battleground states, it does not matter if you win or lose the popular vote. It's very possible, right? It's very possible that the election comes around and Biden
Well, that
loses the popular
doesn't-
vote, but still wins the electoral vote, right? That's very
more of
possible
a
to happen.
Republican thing to happen, though.
That
I don't think that.
well, it's happened like how many times in the recent years? Twice, I
So here's
believe.
the issue.
Well, it happened with
the
Biden, or
Democrats
not
need to be
Biden,
up by
Bush.
about the Democrats need to be up by about 3 percentage points, up roughly 5 to be safe, winning to win the electoral college. When like almost every poll is coming out where Joe Biden is under by like 5 percentage points minimal, this is not looking
And
good.
again, we are 10 months out from this, right? So anyone trying to read the tea leaves wrong now should not do so.
You will want
Because
to
it's
see
totally-
some type of change, some type of
Yes,
direction.
if in 8
that
months
says otherwise.
obviously.
we still
I'm
have
not
this
saying that we
problem,
don't
it's
need
going to
that.
be a problem, yes. But that's why we're doing things like the Ohio Canvassing House, gang, where you can come out and canvass, right, for progressive causes. Anti-gerrymandering bill that we want to put on the Ohio bill. Also for the Senate race there, also to register people to vote. So that's what you can do, gang.
Also, good job on the debate. I saw a lot of
Did
my
you
arguments.
like it? What are your what are your ratings here on the?
I would say I was strong. I mean, you so Destiny was matched up against the other guy that was trying to throw out like random data points and stuff like that. So that was a good matchup, and you were good against Smoker, so that was fine. Like you guys played to each other's strengths and weaknesses pretty well. So you weren't dragging anything down compared to the other guy, and it was all pretty flat out. They didn't have an actual argument that was persuasive.
Sure. I mean, fair. I mean, look, I knew this going in that they were just gonna like the whole idea.
It was appeasement by another name, and I don't know why they
it's
tried
not
to
a
frame it
winning
as
strat.
anything else.
Can someone explain to me what the Ottoman Empire point that he was trying to make was?
I
'Cause,
still
like,
don't know.
They said the Ottoman Empire point was that the Jews and everybody were living hand in hand, and that it was calmer and safer for Jews under the Ottoman Empire, where the Jewishes weren't pushing the state establishment thing. But it's retarded. It doesn't actually apply, and it's one of the things people cope to because they're trying to do the source of the encounter instead of like for example, right? The United States was founded on like stealing land from Native Americans. The concept of what the United States is now has almost no connection to that point anymore, and trying to compare it or try to go back to that point is impossible.
Hey, I want to make a very quick point. I got to do a hit and run here because I got to bounce.
All right, I'm gonna duck.
I don't think
I don't
mine
think I'm
was
sure
gonna
about
last.
the Houthis, but what I do know about is polling and data. So, Artemis, I want to go back to what you said, and I want to just illustrate two very quick points, and then I got to bounce. But I will give you the chance to respond. So, the first thing is that early cycle polls are obviously notoriously unreliable, and you can look back at any major election in the past 20 years and see some major misses in how they report on those polls and then the results. That's obvious, right?
Which direction?
But let's talk a little bit about why, and then I'm going to give you some specifics for this cycle.
Before you go, before you move forward.
Okay.
In which direction do they miss? Which
they
direction?
Could miss either way. They could miss either way.
Is the last?
Let me just get my stuff, and then you can respond because I'm limited on time here.
Okay.
So one of the biggest reasons is early on in this cycle, because it's so hard to predict, people aren't really looking for like the quality predictions in the data. They're looking for the quality headlines. And you can see a recent example of this in the most recent CNBC poll that came. Actually, I think it was CNN. Might have been CNN that came out. And all the headlines show two things. They show Trump up over Biden with Latino voters, right? Which is a shift. Previously, Biden held those voters in the poll. And they also show Trump over Biden in general, right? And those are the sexy headlines. But when you actually dig into the data of that poll, there's a couple of things you find, and one of them in particular is really bad for Trump. So you find that they polled about 1,000 people. It was 1,002, and only about 140 of those people were Latino. And you don't really get the geographical context of that poll, and that's actually a big problem because the Latinos in Florida vote very differently than the Latinos in California, and California's got about a third of the Latino voters in our nation. So without the geographic context, that data is not very good. But the big problem in that data for Trump is that about 45% of the people polled self-identified as strongly conservative or lean conservative. Only about 20% of the people identified the same way as liberal, and everything else was in the middle or not sure, right? So you've got about a 25-point gap, right, between the conservative identified and the liberal identified. Now, when you ask the next question of who are you voting for, Joe Biden or Trump, Trump was ahead by 6 points. That's a huge problem for Trump because we see in the data it skews 25 points conservative, but he's only up 6 points on who are you voting for. Okay. This indicates that Trump's voting bloc has partially left him. He did not win the last election with these voters. I don't know how the hell he's going to win without them. And we see more unreliability and the direction of this actually occurring in the most recent Virginia elections, right? All the polls indicated conservatives were going to do very well, which, by the way, older generations love to take polls. Younger ones don't really participate, so they do tend to skew conservative. But all those polls showed Glenn Youngkin wiping the floor with Democrats in his campaign to get those houses, those state houses, into a supermajority. And then what played out in practice is not only did they not get the supermajority, both of those state legislatures flipped blue completely. Not only did he lose, he was rebuked wholeheartedly by the state, and the polls never saw it, and the headlines didn't report it because at this stage they're not out for data, right? When we get further into the election cycle, we can have a more meaningful conversation about it.
Hold on. Was that just recently, or was that back in 2022?
No. This was October of 23.
Okay. All right. So first of all, got a question because you're a pollster and you'll understand why people do this. Why would they question Latinos in Florida as compared to California? Can you think about why they would be polling a purple state?
Well, is Florida even considered purple anymore?
Oh, some retards think that it is.
I'm not a pollster, so I don't want to misrepresent myself as such.
Yeah, you're polling not fanatic, I would say, but a hobbyist, right? You like to look at the polls.
But and I also want to let you know that poll, we don't know where those voters were polled at, so we don't know if it was Florida or California or where. And
you made it imply as if you thought that they were coming from Florida. Okay.
No. The point I was making there is specific to that voting block. The geography really matters. It matters a lot, more so than other voting blocks. That's the point I was getting at.
Okay, so we have no information on whether or not they all are from one state that just is like conservative naturally. So we can't make that inference. You were just saying that's
correct. That's correct.
Unless we can see the methodology, right?
Correct. Yeah. So
they report it, but they don't report the geography as far as I find.
We also know that from how polling people do data, just because you have a 25-point gap on somebody doesn't mean that that's the number you're going to arrive at. They do adjust for proportionality in polls. They do this all the time. So their findings are based off of the percentages, not based off of the actual overall total.
No. Don't misunderstand. None of this is weighted. This is raw data. Okay, so. We don't need to have conversations about inferences and that sort of stuff. It is very clear and obvious that when you have a demographic or a data sample where the demographic 45 or 46% of them, I forget what it is, identifies as conservative, and then you lose that 20-point advantage over there were 20 points, 20% identifying as liberal, 45 identifying as conservative. That's a 25-point gap. That correlation should hold true in who are you voting for in that next question.
I think that is entirely...
We don't know exactly why, but what we know is Trump's got some big problems with his.
I think you are highly misunderstanding the Trump voter phenomenon when it comes to polling.
It doesn't matter that you think that, because we've seen it
we
demonstrably
know.
unfold that way in the recent elections.
Hold
right?
on. The Virginia election is not going to be a tell-all for every fucking election. You can't just use it and blanket the entire general, because people.
It's not just the Virginia
hold on,
elections.
please let
That's
me.
the example
You said you would let me talk.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So the issue here is that Republicans go to fucking sleep usually during midterm elections. They don't come out unless it's usually the general. So we can't really do like fucking county elections and state elections the same way, because they almost always favor people like Democrats, because they actually like those elections. They actually care about them.
This is through my entire life, that's been the opposite of the case.
Democrats
don't come out during midterms.
Hold on, what the fuck are you talking about?
My entire existence as a
every time. Okay, we see a dramatic increase in the turnout of Republican voters during general elections.
You see,
hold on, that's not the same thing as saying that more Democrats vote in midterms than Republicans. Those are two completely different things.
No.
Hold on. An uptick in the general election doesn't have anything to do with it. Whick is exactly right. It's the opposite. You can make the claim, but the data doesn't support the claim.
I don't know
where
you're
getting
right
into Pew Research for 2022 and see that the most recent midterms had an overwhelmingly higher amount of Republicans turn out than they do Democrats, right?
Weird.
Now, whether or not they win in some key areas, that's different. But Republicans notoriously turn out more in these elections.
I don't know where people are memory gapping the fucking issue what pollsters have with polling fucking Trump voters when they ask them who they're voting for. They don't fucking trust pollsters. They're always underestimating their ability so much that they keep complaining about it. 537 does all the fucking time, or 538 or whatever the fuck it's called.
What does not trusting pollsters have to do with the issues he has in the data?
When you ask people if they're conservative, and then when you ask them, "Are you voting for Trump?" You asking them if they're going to vote for Trump, and they don't trust you.
I'm being occupied right now by polling nerds. You're both polling nerds.
No. So I'm just going to hold on. I'm going to finish it. I'm going to finish this out with this. Right? We already know that if you openly say in anywhere in on the fucking in the United States, I'm going to vote for Trump. You are automatically taking a risk in your fucking social life and at the workplace. So I don't know why people keep forgetting that the secret Trump voter is a fucking thing, and it accounts for like 2 or 3 percentage points.
But when we talk about when I say my entire life, right? I'm 40 years old. So again, before Trump even existed, right, or even was in the political scene, in the midterms, and this is my only point, and then I'm gonna end the stream because I'm tired and I'm hungry. Okay, my only point here is that through my entire life, traditionally in the midterms, more Republican voters show up than Democrat voters. Democrats tend to stay home in the midterms. Now, Trump may have changed that dynamic some, I don't know, but at least traditionally in the last 40 years,
we've seen it in his presidential run. But in the 2018 election, he lost the House.
I would call that an outlier.
Let me close with this as we're going to end the stream. To suggest that even though Trump is ahead in some of these polls, that it's totally fine if we find other issues in the data, because there's huge secret block of Trump voters that's just scared to identify as a Trump voter to the political survey that they're taking and participating in. And they're answering every other question about their opinions of everything and indicating that they would otherwise support these policies if it wasn't him. It's asinine, it's speculative, and it doesn't follow in the data.
It literally is you can literally see it happening in the real world. I don't know why you're trying to deny reality here. You can bullshit about the data all you want. It's literally shows in the election.
Say they're Trump voters. They're not shouting MAGA at the top of their lungs.
Yes. Because fucking the FBI is tracking people buying Bibles at this point. I don't know.
Terrified of the blue-haired trans people. That's why they're not telling us who they are.
Yes, literally. They are afraid of the HR departments. I don't know why you think otherwise. You can joke, you can laugh. I don't know why you fucking think that this is not happening.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never met a Trump voter that doesn't tell me. Good night.
It's been wonderful. Nice to see you again, Falsers. Artemis, always a pleasure. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Tune in Monday. We're going to talk about the border situation. It's going to be great. Got some lawyers and some laymen arguing against each other. I'll see you guys later.